I think the guard are gonna win it. I'm gonna toss my hat in there.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
This is just the heel turn of the century.
They are so good at doing deep dive research and really figuring out exactly what their teammates are not their teammates, but their opponents are going to be doing in a given moment.
Righto, ladies and gentlefolk, denizens of the internet, assorted as you all are, weird as you all fucking are. It's time for another episode of Valoranting. It's the 5th of April. And yeah, we are in what I would say the eye of the storm, or the calm before the storm. Depends really if you think the storm is behind and in front of you or just in front of you. Now, I would say on both sides, but that's just how I live in esports. I don't know about you guys. We are taking the show global this week in a way that we never have before. We all need to shave our heads and put on speed dealer shades because we are Mr. Worldwides right now. We've got Van Silly coming to us live from fucking Vietnam. Mitch coming to us live from Reykjavik. We thought it was Bren's, Nan's place.
Exactly.
We know otherwise now. And obviously I'm coming to you live from Orange County, California. That's fucking wild. Pretty cool stuff. We're going to be bringing on guests also from other far-flung reaches of the world. But first of all, Vans, you're looking good. The lights are on.
Thanks, man.
Now, how is that? Because it's like fucking, it's fuck off o'clock over there. Why is the light on? Isn't your missus trying to sleep?
No, actually, because she has to get ready for a friend's wedding on Sunday. She's actually in the living room sewing together some Vietnamese dresses. So she's pretty busy right now.
Oh.
Plus, she actually sleeps like a rock. So I could scream, I could have the lights on, I could jump around. She'll still. But I'm talking from the future, Mitch. It's April 6th for me today.
That's true.
And I'm also dressed up as if I'm ready to ride a fixed gear on the hills of San Francisco to add a little bit of sunlight to my night, so I'm good to go. I'm good to go.
Like what the fuck you wearing a hat for, mate? Those
I know,
those
to try
Elgato
out
lights
this
giving you
hat.
too much of a tan, homeboy.
Pretty much.
Shit, man. Good to see your face anyway, Mitch.
Likewise.
I just saw you fucking drag in a plate of room service, mate. So go on, tell us about your experience so far.
Let's get this one up. Oh, it's gorgeous.
Mate.
It's fucking gorgeous. It's like a pork tenderloin. You gravy on it, potatoes. I mean, I'm being spoiled here. What you can see though, the food might be fantastic. The internet, not so much. I mean, last minute pivot to Iceland. Obviously, we were looking at Berlin.
I don't know what you're talking about. Your quality is better than back home.
I know, that's the ironic thing, right? I think maybe the microphone's not quite as good. I don't know.
Yeah,
100%,
that's true.
But I don't think I'll be using this for Masters, but we'll see. Yeah, things are good. Things are pretty sweet. I've been in a room by myself for like 4 days now, so
Yeah, you're
I'm losing my
quarantining,
fucking
right?
mind.
You're isolated.
Yeah, but it's not as bad as before. When we were in Germany, we were quarantined. Like you're locked in that fucking room. You do not leave. Now we have like an hour that we can go and walk wherever we want. Just stay away.
Oh
from
yeah,
everybody,
out into the
obviously.
prison yard.
But I mean, this is the thing. Our prison yard is this just beautiful, picturesque landscape. We've got rolling mountains with snow. And actually, the first 2 days that we were here, it was really foggy. So like we were looking around, you could see some of the mountains and we're thinking, wow, this is beautiful. And today it's clear, blue skies, sunshine. It was snowing during that somehow. There weren't even clouds. I don't know where it was coming from, but you can see 360, except for where the sea is. There are just mountains as far as the eye can see, just covered in snow. It's absolutely gorgeous. And the longer that we're here as well, apparently it's going to get colder and it's going to start snowing even more. So I'm really excited. Last time I saw snow, I was like 16. So this is pretty good.
And you wanted to snowboard, right?
Say again, sorry?
You wanted to snowboard after watching Average Jonas ski video.
Dude, how many people are posting skiing and snowboarding videos? I've wanted to do it my whole life, but my mom was like, "No, you'll die. Like you're an idiot if you go snowboarding. You're not coming back."
You will eat shit on a regular basis, mate. Yeah,
100%. I'm like a daredevil as well. Like I know I'm not good at it. I'm not good at any sort of physical things, but I'll still throw myself at them. So yeah, it'll be a fun experience. And I found somewhere 25 minutes from the hotel that I can go skiing on our days off. I have like April 11th off, but we'll watch the games.
You have like an airdrop right into like the what's it called, like the Bat Springs.
There's a bunch of like geothermal springs that you've got. That's geysers, you've got the like hot lakes, so Blue Lagoon, Sky Lagoon, all this sort of stuff that are really cool. But this skiing place, 25 minutes from here, we've got a 3 or 4 day break in between groups and playoffs.
Nice.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
Snowmobiling, ice caves. I'm living a good life. I'm very happy.
What's the length of day out there right now? Is it like normal or?
It's pretty long. Yeah, I think it's going dark about 8 or 9 p.m. Like properly dark.
Nice.
So it's pretty decent.
Okay, actually, good time to be there. This is not too disconcerting.
Mhm.
All right, yeah, good to catch up. We need to talk about Valorant though. That's kind of why Mitch is in Iceland in the first place.
Oh, true,
Van
true.
Seel's
Yeah.
Van Seal is in Vietnam for his own selfish reasons. We won't talk about those, but
What an asshole.
on today's show, obviously we've covered NA and EU extensively, and we often get asked, hey, can you talk about APAC? Can you talk about this region, that region? We rarely have the time. So these weeks before VCT kicks off are a great chance to have a look at some of those regions. Right now, it's not just going to be us fucking pinheads looking at Korea going, the scoreboard seems very interesting here. No, we're going to obviously bring in Achilios, who is our resident expert and hot take producer for VCT Korea. We'll definitely grill him. We'll definitely get some of his thoughts on how that region's looking. And then, of course, we'll talk a little bit about that LATAM and Brazil region. Obviously, Crew is headed to Masters. We're going to talk with, for the first time, Dryad. She's going to talk us through exactly how that all came to pass. And then, obviously, a proper holistic preview of Masters. Some shit predictions from your boys. Expect no less, of course, here on this show. So that's all ahead of us. But again, I think this is a great opportunity to catch in with our, what do you call him, our South Korean correspondent, bloody Seth. We bloody drag him on here every time. But again, keeping the worldwide thing going. I think it probably ridiculous hours of the night. Don't know how many soju bottles have already been consumed, but we will patch in Seth King. Achilios here. How you doing, mate? Good to see you again.
I'm joining you,
Hello. Hey, Van Seely, nice to represent over there. I don't know what that one is, but hey, how's it going? Happy to be here. I'm trying to maintain my record. I don't even know if this is a thing, but it feels like I'm one of the most repeat visitors on this show. So I'm trying to just be the guy who's a guest the most on Valorant.
Yeah,
so
that's
I'm happy
awesome.
to be here for that.
You may well be, actually. Hey, Vance, real quickly, how much does soju cost in Vietnam? Because people love it out here. I saw a tweet, I won't name them, but they're like, oh, I can't wait to drink soju tonight. He lives in LA. I'm like, at $14 a bottle. And then I saw Seth and Monty and everybody lived in Korea just shitting on him. Like, why would you be excited about that? It costs $14 a bottle.
So actually,
I don't know why you would want to spend that much money, especially after your website fucking just dropped everybody because I can't.
I bought these at the 7-Eleven, so it's actually more expensive, right? Those type of stores, and they're $3 US a bottle.
Damn, dude.
That's not bad. Yeah. That's not bad. It's not. It's no Korea, but it's
no
not bad
Korea.
at all.
It's definitely no Korea, but it's cheap.
Yeah, LA gets
like
hyped
restaurant
up so much
price
for that.
here.
Like, let's go to Koreatown and drink soju, and it's so expensive.
The yogurt soju though bangs.
This was $13. $13.
Because you're a fucking hotel, man.
But it's also Iceland.
How much was your fucking pork tenderloin? I'm sure it was like $65.
That's what I was saying.
Well, this is part of the quarantine diet, so I don't know. I have no idea, but too much, I bet.
Fucking quarantine diet.
Just write it all off.
All right, Seth. So we're gonna angle this from the perspective of like most NA viewers, maybe some EU viewers that don't watch any VCT Korea for whatever reason, right? It could be time constraints. It could be whatever. So let's have a look at the bracket here and talk to us high level, because there's obviously a few names we're not familiar with. I saw holy moly, I was like, who the fuck is this? But obviously, teams like WGS, really well-known name in South Korean esports in general, right? We know that Damwon are a fixture. We know, and some people probably know that DRX were Vision Strikers, but talk us high level here. And, round one, day one, you're looking at the bracket. Tell us what your kind of thoughts are going in and what your expectations are, and then maybe how they changed as we went through.
I mean, round one, it was already a little bit of a toss-up, I suppose. What with WGS versus Maru. Maru was actually a pretty good team of up-and-comers, some familiar faces on that roster, and it felt like they very well could beat WGS, because WGS, as I've been touting them, is like the Robin Hood team. They always lose to the teams that they should, in theory, beat, and then they beat the ones that they have no business beating, such as Onslayers. So, yeah, sometimes they deliver on that, and sometimes WGS is just so illogical that they break their own rule set. They can't beat DRX, etc. But from the outside, I mean, I think things for the most part played out almost exactly like we kind of anticipated, other than Damwon shitting the bed. Looking back over at this lower bracket, especially like Damwon, we like them going up against Onslayers, it was already clear that they were not nearly as strong. Them being able to take a map off of them was a good step in the right direction. It's like, okay, Damwon is firmly the third best team in the region. They'll make a lower bracket run. They'll probably face against Onslayers in the losers bracket final, and then we get the Onslayers DRX matchup. That's basically what was anticipated. But holy moly, started breaking the script from the very moment that they took down WGS. This was, again, kind of in keeping with WGS, Holy Moly being a ragtag squad of players that have existed on different teams coming together. Like, there's no coaching staff, there's no sponsors for this roster at all. They're kind of like Flash Lux back in the Apex Overwatch days, where there was just nothing really going for this team. Except they obviously performed a hell of a lot better than Flash Lux did. They managed to win that match versus WGS, and then they go up against Damwon, and Damwon just can't deal with them. They don't know what the hell to do. They fell apart at the seams, and Holy Moly looked great. Like, they were doing not intelligent things, but they were playing their really wild comps, and they were making really wild decisions, and but executing on it really well, I guess, is the best way to describe it. It was super intriguing to watch their play. Like, from the time that they were just playing on bind and they did nothing but go B site 8 out of 12 rounds on the attack. From
When
the
they
other
played
time,
Yoru on Ascent in that series.
yes, they
Right.
played Yoru, and the Yoru basically did fuck all outside of like 2 rounds when he actually had his ult up, and then he got some really good scouting information. Did end up coming up with a few kills, but like the whole first, I'd say 3/4 of that Ascent map, the Yoru didn't do anything at all. It was everybody else just really hard carrying. I think it was Hermes in that moment that was playing it, really kind of hard carrying him through that, and then he had a couple moments, and that was just the icing on the cake. And Damwon just couldn't do anything at all. So they completely floundered. So I'd say that was the biggest shock, for sure. Them going up against Onslayers, I was like, well, they've already kind of bested WGS. They've already gotten rid of Damwon. There's a possibility that they take down Onslayers. But in the end, we got to what we had anticipated. We got the DRX on Slayers final. So I think the route that we took to get there was a little bit stranger. We took a couple of back roads, but we ended up getting there in the end.
Unfortunately, it's best though for the grand finals to see who's going to qualify between Onslayers and DRX, because even going into the upper finals when it was those two teams, it was like a great storyline because ONS was like the new team that's almost going to play like the new turnstile and qualify for Masters, and then just knock DRX out, and then that team would implode. But then once DRX got their revenge match against ONS for not only the grand finals but the upper bracket finals, it showed that DRX came out with a vengeance and just dominated both series.
Yeah, it was way more one-sided than I had anticipated. I thought that Onslayers was going to do a little bit more homework to get prepared for this, but clearly DRX just I mean, they did extra credit. They went above and beyond. They had such a great read on them. Like, this Haven was great, and it felt like, I think it was more disappointing because this first map was so good.
Yes.
Because we did go to overtime off the rip. Granted, DRX they just win 2 rounds straight up in OT, so it's not like a really extended map. But it was like, okay, this is a little bit of a taste of what's to come. Like, the rest of the series can be like this. We're getting ready to go to DRX's map pick. Fracture was left open the last time they played against each other, but we didn't get to see it. Or not the last time, but the first time that they played against each other, we didn't get to see it. So what does that mean? Like, is Onslayers really prepared on Fracture? Is DRX going to get surprised? No, it was, I think,
flattening.
They just gave it everything to try to get this Haven win, and I think as soon as Onslayers lost this, they just completely collapsed. All of the air was just let out, and they just could not reinflate. They looked off for the whole rest of the series. Like, King had that beautiful 3K Sheriff, like, just lockdown on the C site at one point in this series, and he looked off for the rest of the set. Bazzi had a few moments where he was looking like he was going to bring it back, but Goddead absolutely did not look great. And Zimba especially, I think, was one of the most disappointing people to see, because he's been just the epitome of consistency for Onslayers. He's been such a fantastic controller, a great lurker for them. His game sense has always been through the roof, both last year and throughout this season on Onslayers. But in this series, it just looked like he forgot how to play. All of his senses were just definitely not tingling, and he was the one that was getting caught off guard time and time again.
Nerves.
So it was a really rough look for all of them. I'm hoping, obviously, that for stage 2, there's no way that this team like Fractures or anything like that, they're in it to win it. I'm hoping that they come back stronger in stage 2 and can make it at least closer, if not be able to take it and then represent at Masters 2.
Can I quickly ask you a question about these guys when we come in? Because Buzz...
No.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Move on. No, but Buzz is obviously a guy I typically expect to see on the Jet. RB coming in, he's doing pretty good.
Yeah.
He's got some good stats. Are we justifying it now? Is this like we expect to see that continue coming into Masters, that Buzz is not going to be on that duelist role?
Yeah, I absolutely think so. I mean, RB has obviously already shown that he is a very flexible player, moving over to the Sova last year and still looking like he was finding very, very good impact when they did have like Lockyo on the lineup and Buzz was the duelist. So both of these players are showing that they do have a great amount of depth, but I think that typically where Buzz can go to chamber, it just suits him so very well. I think that he just has a better idea of how to play the Sentinel role compared to RB, and RB is just so familiar with Jet Rays that they were just like, okay, just keep playing this. I'd say like maybe the one swap I could maybe see them doing in the future is like if it is just a Jet map, not something where they want to have Rays, because I think you have RB play that every single day of the week. If they you could flip Buzz over to the Jet if you want to just find like high impact, but given that we haven't seen that at all, I kind of doubt that they're workshopping it. But I also don't think it would take too much practice to be able to have that kind of flip, and then you just put RB on something like the chamber. I just don't know how he would look playing the other Sentinels such as Killjoy or Cypher when it very rarely comes out. I think it's just a lot more consistent to just keep doing what they're doing, because while RB is not putting up nearly as flashy stats, he is still incredibly consistent, and his raise is by far just one of the best in the region.
And Buzz actually has been playing a very good Killjoy too. He was playing the Killjoy as if he was playing a duelist, to be honest with you. So he wasn't like a watch flank or anything. He was actually entering or even lurk entering for the team for DRX. So it only makes sense for me, to be honest, because if you're looking at even if you're looking at the overlay of that roster right now, of that agent composition, for most of the agent comps, it's 3 support players and then Buzz, and then you have that Sentinel player from Buzz playing the Sentinel player, and then you have 3 Sentinel support casts, and then you have RB as a Jet. So now you have actually Buzz able to support, to trade, or even entry with RB to basically help that out. So I think it looks pretty good in that end, and he suits a role to like a more aggressive for DRX that changes a little bit from what we've seen in the past. So I do have some hope for DRX at this point, but there's been some games for this team as well for DRX where I'm just like, oh man, these guys are still playing Counter Strike, because I don't know if you remember, Seth, but it's like against WGS in like the upper semis, and you're on Ascent, and then they have somebody playing like a KO, and they're peeking into corners without using the utility of KO, and they're just body peeking or walking instead. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? They're not scaling as well.
Yeah, that was a bit of a wonky series for sure. But it's also one of those series that does give me a good amount of confidence in DRX, because they were able to make those adjustments throughout the series. I mean, there was a period of time where WGS was 2 rounds away from knocking them down to the lower bracket.
Exactly.
And then they managed to make it happen. They didn't give any more rounds over to WGS. They ran it back. They ended up getting that 13-11 scoreline in the second map, and then during the 12-minute break that we give them between the second and third maps, they went, okay, this is how we absolutely and utterly decimate WGS and ruin their careers. And then you go into the next map, and then it was a 13-2. It was just a night and day shift. And that's one of the things that really instills confidence in me for DRX, is that they are very good at staying level-headed. I mean, they've shown that time and time again. They showed that to us as champions when they're playing against C9, nearly bringing back that Ascent after being in a 2-10 deficit in the first half. Like, they can stop themselves from tilting out of the game. They can focus back up, and they can make a deep run of it, if not take the map itself. And if they do lose the map, then they'll just get focused in for the next one. Now they have even more chances, because we have the double elimination, obviously, throughout the whole run of this. So if they do get knocked down to the lower bracket, that's just going to give them even more time to practice and prep for their opponents and get a really good read on them. Because one of the things that I looked at the most for DRX, and the thing that I will quote the most, is the back-to-back play against Onslayers, when they played them in the group stage and they lost, and then they played them again in the playoffs. And it was a completely different look. They absolutely downloaded the way that Bazzi likes to play on certain maps. They knew exactly where he was going to be on Breeze at any given moment. If you go back and watch that, I think it was 13-4 the scoreline. I don't have it in front of me. But they knew round over round exactly where Bazzi was going to be positioning with an operator on the defensive side. So they are so good at doing deep dive research and really figuring out exactly what their teammates are not their teammates, what their opponents are going to be doing in a given moment.
But South Korea don't have an automatic playoff slot at Masters, do they? They have to go through groups.
Right. Yes.
let's let's talk a little bit about. Well, first of all, we can the last map in that series, Ian. I know you've got it queued up and you're fucking ready to show the footage. Don't show the footage. It's a 13-2. I've definitely seen quite a lot of the like matches in sort of VCT Korea. Like it's like a really close first map, and then boom, the teams gets fisted for the rest of the series. So that was definitely how that went. If you want to go back and watch it, I mean, Van Silly kind of said at the start of this segment, a little bit of a anticlimactic after a really sick first map. So let's talk about the future for this DRX team here. Let's look at this Masters bracket and maybe talk about you know, how things went and how things may go. First of all, we can refresh memory on the Vision Strikers, the DRX team, and how they went. This is obviously the champions group that they are in. Obviously, as we found out, pretty fucking nasty group. Very, very difficult. Obviously, they drop that game number 3 to Fnatic, and then they have to go up against C9 in the lower bracket, and they sort of fall out. Not what I think a lot of Korean fans were looking for, and also maybe not what many were expecting. We have actually sort of a clip here of a Korean fan sort of sharing their thoughts on how they go. So this is a good example of the mindset for South Korean fans going in. Enjoy this.
All right. Listen up, you limp dick fuck-ups. I can't believe that I have to sit here at 12:30 a.m. and record this video to explain to you something that you should already know in your heart, is that Vision Strikers is going to win this whole fucking tournament. The fact that I have to do that just goes to show how tiny, how pea-brained you all are, that you can't wrap your heads around this very simple concept. Paper Thin's probably coming at you. He's giving you all these statistics. He's talking about how Stacks is an amazing in-game leader, how they've had this time to probably work out how they're going to utilize Lakia, and that he's going to be impactful in the team and pop off and destroy everybody in their group and beyond into that grand final to take the trophy home. All that doesn't fucking matter, though. You know how I know? I know based on pure fucking instinct. Just take a look at this team. They're stacked, they're jacked, they're ready to fuck. They're going to absolutely destroy everybody else in this tournament. One glance at them, boom, already know it. If you haven't seen them, go watch the VODs. Go to vlr.gg. Read some statistics. Do whatever you need to do, you fucking nerd. Just study up. Because if you're not behind the Vision Strikers, if you're not backing this horse, then my God, you are in the wrong game. You're going to lose all your money, all credibility that you possibly could have built up as an armchair analyst out the fucking window if you decide to back another team in this competition. They're going to pound. Don't be on the wrong side of the fence. Join me. Join my coalition. Support Vision Strikers. Because if you don't, you're just going to look like a bit of an imbecile at the end of the day, really. All right, cheers. Have a good rest of your show.
Yeah, I probably do the same.
Drinking his sorrows.
I don't know where that accent came from, honestly.
Dude, no, it's all fucking New Jersey roots. I was saying this before the show. I'm like, you wouldn't know Seth is from Jersey until he fucking has a drink in his hand and off he goes.
I think it was. I remember doing like a monologue back in high school because I studied like theater and whatnot, and I did that accent because the character was from the Northeast, and I think that just kind of slipped through. It was just I don't know, a fragment of like my performance history. But overall, look, it may not have come to fruition, but I'm still proud about that rant because that was all off the cuff, just laying in bed after like a glass of scotch at like 3 a.m. or something in Germany. So I was happy with the product in the end.
Seth, please make me feel good about myself here. Please tell me that wasn't the first attempt. You must have at least hit record and went. There was at least one scuffed attempt. Please.
No, that was on the first take.
Off the dome, baby.
Yeah. I can't get my name out of my mouth on the first fucking.
Yeah,
take.
I'm the same.
I ran it through my head several times, like what I kind of wanted to say, because one of the producers was like DMing me on Twitter. He's like, "Hey, like we need the video because we're gonna do the show soon."
And that's Ian. Sorry, he's really pushy.
Yeah, it was Ian. He was like reminding me. I'm like, okay, like thinking about it every time he texts me. Like, what am I gonna say? What am I gonna say? Like, but the limp dick fuck ups part, like that all was just like. Sure, just stream of consciousness.
Shakespearean.
That's so good. That's so good.
So, past the fact that it was definitely a laureate performance, I want to talk about maybe what has changed.
Sure.
Because obviously, very curious to see sort of how you feel DRX are stacking up internationally, especially where, in fairness, like you've got a few of these series, you know, in their run that end up being blowouts, end up being a little one-sided, and maybe you wonder, you know, across the totality of the map pool, how much have we seen this team get tested? Because I'm not gonna mince words. Onslayers chose Fracture and got fucked on. You know what I mean? That was their map pick, and DRX like, okay, we're just gonna swing dick and win this series. So how
Other way
sorely?
around.
Oh, didn't
I think,
Onslayers
I
choose
think
Fracture?
VLR has the wrong thing listed.
Okay. All right. See, the life of a scoreboard
yeah.
Steven sometimes comes back to bite you.
It's all good.
So then tell us how you think they stack up internationally then in light of this, because obviously some one-sided games that get them here.
Yeah. So obviously, like DRX has always had a very strong map pool outside of the Fracture, which seems like maybe they've rectified that. Obviously, they got the taste slapped out of their mouths by Fnatic last year at Champions on that map. They
Not
just
running
way
that
too much confidence going into it. Yeah, they just had way too much confidence going into that map. But I you know, that's the thing about DRX is that if they do falter, if they are shown up on something, they are going to go back to basics. They're going to wipe the slate clean and say, okay, restart, let's run it again.
Yeah.
And then they figure it out. So they're really good at drilling. So that's, I think, one of the most baseline changes is that all of the faults that we probably have seen from them in the past on their maps, they've tuned those up. But the biggest change for me is just the overall play style, because it's a very different look for DRX. They're still very dominant. They're still very controlling. They love to inch out. They love to gain information and gain map control. But the biggest difference is that they play much more supportively here. And that might sound weird, just given the number of like set plays and how they played off of each other last year. But you look at this, and I think Vansily actually kind of summarized it fairly well earlier by saying like you have these three support players that really just kind of enable RB and Buzz, but at the same time, like RB and Buzz are also enabling the rest of the team to really pop off. There's very rarely for DRX right now, it feels like people who are just taking over the lobby, which was a bit more of the case last year. You know, you had Stacks come in, he'd be the clutch king, he'd be the one who comes up with 4 kills on the regular and whatnot. Like Stacks' numbers are not large by any means this season. He's playing a much more supportive Breach, but he's still there to get the job done if he does get pushed into that position. I quoted this, I forget when I was talking about it, but there is I think it was the show that I did with Thorn, but everybody on DRX basically has like a 24 to like 26% clutch percentage. So when they are put into that position, anybody on the team has like a 1 in 4 to close to a 1 to 3 chance of being able to get the clutch off. The caveat is that they are not very commonly put into that position. So many teams in Korea have not really been able to push them to the point where they are in that clutch spot. So you take it with a grain of salt, but it's just showing you like how consistent everybody is playing on this roster. They're not reliant on Buzz go kill. They're not reliant on Stacks gets the 4K clutch. It's everybody performs incredibly consistently. Everybody gets their kill or gets the, you know, maybe somebody gets 2 kills in a round, but for the most part, everybody is involved. So it's much more spread out. And I think that that is giving a lot more, it's relieving a lot of pressure on everybody because they can breathe easy because they know that everybody else is there to have their back. So honestly, one of the biggest reasons why I like this swap for RB over to the Jet, because even though he isn't as flashy, he isn't as, you know, 1v5y as Buzz was, I think that that suits the new play style of DRX super well because they are liking to play as a 5-man team rather than, you know, seeing who can get multi-kills and then cleaning up the rest.
At least they also went from like an 8-player roster, like a consistent 5 as well. I think that's another good thing too.
Yeah, the whole Lakia situation, I remember coming on this show when he was acquired and we were talking about it, and I said if anybody can make this kind of like 6-man setup work, it would be Vision
We
Strikers.
believe they'd get value out of Lakia at the time, right? I think you said that.
Yeah, and they just weren't able to do that. There's always going to be these fucking idiots online who say like they took Lakia to cripple Newturn. Like, no, shut the fuck up. Like he wanted to join the team, and they genuinely tried to make it work. It just didn't. I remember talking to them at Champions, and I was like, "Are we going to see Lakia?" And they said, "Maybe, but probably not because the scrims have been going poorly when he's in." And you know, just because you have this guy who's a star player, you put him on a team, it doesn't mean that everybody's going to gel. I think it just really impacted the communication that these 5 have. These 5 have such clear comms. If you listen into them in the middle of a hectic moment, nobody's really yelling. Everybody's just being like, oh yeah, like he's boats. Okay, cool. You got, okay, nice. I'm darting. Like, it's
Yeah.
just very calm. And that is superb. You never have a moment where you are confused about who is speaking, what the call is going to be, what they should do. You just can't really fuck with this 5. I think if they can keep these 5, and if Zest can continue to have just great ideas for his IGLing, which I think he's only faltered once, and that was during the Onslayer series, the first time they met. Like, if he just continues to have the consistency that he's had, he can absolutely IGL them to a championship.
Yeah. The replays definitely showed like some very calm communication, right? When you're going in between from like one round ending to the freeze time, they always have like these replays with comms. I don't understand what's going on. I only understand Naisu in the end, but when they're actually interacting with each other, it doesn't feel as hectic as you mentioned here.
What about Shiba?
Yep.
I know that one.
That's a dog, right?
Shiba.
You gotta put an L on the. You gotta put an L on the end of it. Shiba.
Shiba? Okay. Because
Shiba.
I always hear that there's like all those rage compilations on YouTube, and you see the Korean guys just go Shiba, just like punching the air and stuff. I love it, man.
He was probably watching a Sparkle compilation. To be fair, yeah.
That was the first Korean word that I ever learned when I lived with Piglet from SKT fame on Team Liquid. It was the first thing that I ever heard. So I learned that before I learned how to say hello.
Incredible.
Oh,
I learned that from myself and Van's favorite TV show. Actually, we watched the one about the zombie outbreak. I can't even remember what it's called now.
Oh yeah,
all of us are
we're
dead.
all dead. Yeah, all of
all of us are dead.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
great show, isn't it, Vance? Love it.
Yeah,
it's weird sometimes the
Started well.
translations they give that.
It's so
the
long.
Korean name, if you
Yeah.
translate the Korean name, it translates to today at our high school. With like dot, like with an ellipses at the end.
Interesting.
What the fuck?
Yeah, you always lose
That's
all of that
awesome.
context, right? When you
Yeah.
swap over.
Do we have a graphic of the group that the RX are playing in? Because obviously, as we talked about, they look at me just fucking pulling you guys out of your discussion. Sorry, I'm curious about this though, because the playing field's changed for DRX. They're in a group with what? Fnatic,
Zeta.
I'd definitely
NIP.
say it would be the easiest one. Yeah.
and Zeta Division. Well, now with Fnatic being, I mean, let's be honest with you, you know, obviously weakened significantly. This actually seems like, you know, pretty fucking doable with DRX.
Yeah. So honestly, when I saw the groups come out, I was initially excited because I'm like, great, we get this rematch between DRX and Fnatic. They are going to be so hungry to take that.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating. I'm saying this. I can't even imagine how the team, and especially Durka, feels like that they have 2 substitutions going into this tournament, and their best player in Durka is not going to be there. And it's one of those moments where I wanted to see them clash again. And if they lost, I'd be like, boom, that's it. Like Fnatic is just the better team. DRX make the run through the lower bracket, whatever. But this is going to be one of those things where now there's so much doubt cast on it. Because if DRX just wipes the floor with them because they've done a lot of prep and whatnot, and they know the tendencies of the rest of the players at Fnatic, like there's always going to be the question of like, is it just because there's the 2 substitutes? And we have that what if, and you never want to have that. So my heart goes out to the the Fnatic fans and Fnatic as a squad, because it really sucks to hear the news. But for the rest of this group, like I still wasn't sweating that much, because obviously 2 teams are going to be exiting from here, and them going up against NIP, them going up against Zeta, like I have DRX 110%.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll tell you from what I'm hearing from teams. I've been talking around to a couple of the EMEA teams, not the ones that are here at the event, but some of the guys that are still at home and scrimming. And the responses I've gotten as far as Zeta, most people have said that they're just not good, that they're not up to the level, and they're going to get the floor wiped with them. And then one very good team that I respect a lot, told me that Zeta was the only team at Champs that just fucked them up in the scrim. So very different results coming out there. Well, no, Alliance have one of their players here. And actually, I was going to say, when you were saying about all that bad stuff, all the downsides Fnatic have got, I'll make it even worse. They had 2 days here, as far as I know, 2 full days where they couldn't use the practice rooms as well, because they were waiting for some COVID tests to come back and all that sort of stuff.
No, that's
so
fucking tragic.
They were also then pushed back 1 or 2 days. I know Boaster, like, normally I'm not really sure we can talk about this stuff, but Boaster tweeted it out like another day not being allowed in the practice rooms. And I'm pretty sure it was the 3rd day. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was just 1 day they missed. But still, you don't want to lose practice when you're also having to deal with all these subs. And then Durka couldn't make it over, so now they fly Hyber out, and yeah, it's a lot of stuff. I will say the people that they've got, obviously Fearoth, I believe in massively. Hyber is a insane individual player. He could fill the boots of Dirk. He really and truly could. He's on the short list of a ton of EMEA teams, so I'm so happy to see him get this opportunity. But preparation, what it's always going to come back to, man. Like, you think you can turn up to an international event with basically a new team? There you go. Day 3 quarantine. We're allowed in the prep rooms again. Yeah, like, if you think you can come in with a week prep and with essentially a new team, right? Core 3, add in 2, that's a lot of stuff to redo, man. Your whole map pool's gone. It's going to be really tough for them.
If there's still a good storyline you could have, sorry, Seth, just to add, like a storyline in Iceland would be potentially even the Jammies and Whippy, right? For version 1 last year, where Vanity, also new IGL coming in, still brought like a team where they made it very competitive versus Liquid.
True.
Made it very deep into the run pool for Iceland. Still very doable with the capabilities of Boaster, right? If we're going to give a lot of credit to Vanity's IGLing, you're going to give that same credit, if not more as well, for Boaster of how well Fnatic has been doing since the last tail end of the year to the beginning of the year this year.
Oh, yeah, for sure. 100% agree with you there. If anyone can do it, they can.
But they don't have their top 21 player in the world in Durka.
Top 21, Jesus. Yeah. He was MVP 3 out of 7 of the days of the last Reykjavik event, and remember, he didn't play every day, so it's pretty sick.
The MVPs can only go so far, because our MVP for VCT Korea was Exy, and he lost to Holy Moly. So sometimes those wins don't necessarily translate too far. But my biggest concern for Fnatic is kind of like, because it's not about the people that they're picking up, because obviously they wouldn't grab them as substitutes if they had any concern about how they were going to play. My concern is kind of what I was talking about with the Lakia situation, is where the comms, the flow that you're so used to, that's where things can really get stirred up. But Fnatic, there is still a chance that they could find a really nice groove, find a really nice flow of play style that will allow them to get the wins. Honestly, I'm hoping for the best for them, because this is a bit of a David and Goliath situation to be thrown in. This is just the universe taking a shit on you when you least expect it in the most important moment. So honestly, I'm kind of rooting for them to overcome these odds, because if they do, it's a fucking wonderful storyline.
What is that copium that's going to come out with? Yeah, it's not FPX. Yeah, but what sort of copium's got proud of it this time? Because we say that if DRX wins against a team like Fnatic, it's like, oh, there's going to be like an asterisk of what is. But what if Fnatic actually beats DRX here, Seth?
I mean,
what video we're going to see?
I will take my hat off to them. I will just tip it to them, because they will have absolutely earned it, or DRX will have really shot the bed. It's one of those two scenarios, I think. No matter what, I still hope that it's a good game. Last year, me would say, like, if they don't shit on this form of Fnatic, then everything's awful. But I'm actually still hoping for a close series, because I do like the kind of like rivalry there between those two teams, just from the fracture banter alone. So I'm hoping that it does end up being a good series, especially for Fnatic's fate. Fnatic's.
If Fnatic end up winning,
I can't talk anymore. for their sake, there we go. For their sake, I hope that it's a good one, because I would like to see them exit the group as well.
If Fnatic end up winning, I think I'll request that we get you for the post game interview instead of one of the players. We'll just like, how do you feel right now? And we'll play.
I mean, don't bother with the microphone, because he'll just take a long fucking drink out of whatever bottle he's holding. You know?
It won't. It will be something much stronger than beer.
I wouldn't blame you.
Well, again, look. I mean, it looks like it's a pretty, fortuitous set of circumstances for DRX to make it into what will be a double elimination sort of playoff here. So that's pretty good. Extra chances up the sleeve in case there's a slip. That you said there sort of might be. Any last fighting words for the rest of the regions, or is there any region, Seth, you really just want to fucking see DRX get paired up against, and what's your message for him? Any fighting words, maybe? I'm just trying to milk you, but that's fine.
So
you got nipples, it works.
Yeah, you can milk me. You can milk me, Greg.
Greg.
Yeah, I saw there's some articles coming out, and people are really excited, because like APAC's got the two teams that are going over and everything, and people talked about like FPX or not FPX, sorry, PRX, how they look so good. Yeah, another pour one out for FPX as well. But for PRX, And I was reading an article, and you know, the APAC casters are really jazzed up to talking about how like they look like PRX looks like they're the best in Asia. Sit the fuck down. It's not gonna happen. Never in a million goddamn years. I don't care if this is a one-team region till the end of fucking time. It will always have the team that is producing the top talent, the top results in the Asia region. So get the fucking line and wait your turn for eternity, because you're never gonna have the #1 slot. It's like, how can I quantify this? So like we have like fucking Goku on our team. And then the APAC region is sitting there cheering on Hercule because they think that he's the world champion. Like, man doesn't have any fucking powers. He's gonna get dumped.
Man, you could have said Yamcha, but instead you go for fucking Hercule. God damn, bro.
Fucking Hercule.
That is so good.
Show me that matchup. Let him get dunked on. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, baby. All right. I'm looking forward to that now. Yeah. Again, I guess there's a lot of, a little bit of acrimony in the Asia region in general, is APAC or sort of, East Asia as well, to see who's going to come out on top there. That's great. I love some fighting words, Seth. Thanks for joining us,
definitely
man.
just clip that in case this comes back to bite me.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've never seen someone compared to Hercule. Like, that's fucking raw. That is raw.
Hey, at least Hercule's got the clout, though. Hercule's got the clout.
He achieved something. He calmed down Majin Buu and everything. He was a good therapist.
Yeah.
He's just a shitty fighter.
But everyone thought he was a great fighter because he never fought anyone that was particularly strong. That's the moral of the story here. That's the metaphor for the APAC region. You know what I mean? Again, I'm following the threads here. Man. All right. We're gonna move on. Seth, thanks for coming on, man. Always great to have you here.
Problem.
And yeah, thanks for the free content, homie. Thanks for the clips.
No problem.
Love you, Seth. Thank you.
Take care, mate.
See you guys.
If you've enjoyed the show, please like and subscribe, and make sure you hit the bell for the future noties, but also comment below with what you'd like to see in our future shows.
Look, pretty good primer, I think, looking into the Korean region. I know that we've, a lot of the time on the show, we do get asked to sort of cover that, especially Nostromo comes in chat, makes some ridiculous assertions like Korea will be the best team in the world, and then asks us why we don't cover that region. It's because you're annoying, bro. That's why. So, I mean, Vans, I know this because you are like living on, in two different worlds, right? You're obviously you're in Vietnam, but I know you watched a lot of what you were seeing. You watched a lot of what was happening over in Korean VCT.
Korea, yeah.
How accurate do you feel like sort of Seth is on sort of where he thinks that they sort of stand? Because I know you mentioned you saw a lot of weird things, right?
Yeah.
And stuff that just didn't make a lot of sense to you. Obviously, through the lens of a North American Valorant analyst, I'd love to know some of your thoughts, like high level, like, are they lacking anything really coming into Iceland?
I think, again, it comes down to when you start with the nerves and you get like those mistakes that they played when I was like harping on. I think it was even Stax playing, like somebody that's as experienced as Stax and is able to make mistakes on KO and not able to scale correctly, kind of like threw me off on like how DRX would do. But as Seth mentioned, it is definitely a team that's able to regain the composure within the same series as itself. For that group that we just saw, I do agree with Seth. Despite having some shaky moments for DRX, they're going to look and sit very comfortably in this Group A, for me, even probably at the top.
Okay. All right. So with that being said, I want to start to look over at what's happening in South America, right? LATAM and Brazil. We're really lucky today, actually, to be able to bring someone onto the show who has a fair bit of expertise with both of those regions. I think you probably met them, Vans, during your time sort of presenting here in Los Angeles. But we'll waste no more time and welcome onto the show for the first time, Dan Dryad. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, thank you guys. Happy to be here. I am just so hyped because I've been watching analysts and I've been watching casters on stream, underrating Crew and underrating Loud again, and I'm just here to really explain what's going on over there.
I'd love to hear that. Yo, her screen is way more colorful than ours. I'm jealous. I need to add some more fucking.
Yeah, how about you fucking dye your hair then? How about you do that?
I could do that.
Vans?
What color should I do, chat? What color should I do?
I want to see you with.
Oh no, more of a blue, I think.
I'm thinking of blue too.
If I do blue, it's too like. Are you asking me to be just a copy carbon of Frodan? Come on, give me a different color.
No, that's true. That's true.
Yeah,
Right,
check mark Asian with blue hair
yellow
already done.
Blonde. Like
Yellow
I want it
blonde?
like straw. you know, like corn, the color of corn, motherfucker. I want you looking like Johnny Bravo.
I'd be down. I'd be down.
You know what I
I
mean?
think my wife would be down to allow me to to do that as well.
I mean,
why not alfalfa with this fucking little sticky hair that's coming out
yeah,
here?
yeah. If you want some, man, if you want some color, that's up to you. You know what I mean? I don't know what to tell you, man.
I am
so
colored.
for those obviously, Dryad, not familiar with you, tell us about what your role is. Obviously, you work on broadcast. You're pretty
Yeah.
involved in like in especially in South American Valorant. I've seen you in other games as well, so you've obviously been around a fair bit. But tell us a little bit about what you're up to right now.
Yeah, so mainly I am a commentator and an analyst for, as of right now, Valorant Latin America, and I cover different events for them. That goes from game changers to other events that they do on the side as well. And yeah, I also do that for other games, mainly Overwatch. And I mean, the main thing that I've been working on since I started casting, which was 2 years ago, was making sure that I'm covering both of the regions that I feel like I'm part of, right? So Latin America, which is, I was born in Colombia. I have experience. I lived there until I was 14, and then since then I've been living in NA. I've been living in the US. So to me, my priority is always making sure that both of those regions are getting covered, and they also get the same attention as everyone talks in NA EU, but I feel like there's also a connection to be made with Latin America and NA. So
Right.
that is kind of my priority with everything that I do in my job in casting, and making sure that those storylines are being told.
Nice.
Yeah, obviously really valuable to have an English speaking talent that can also uh cover those regions and also is involved. So again, good to have you here. I want to start straight off and talk about the LATAM region, right? Because I really think that LATAM put themselves on the map at champions, right? I think this crew team was just absolutely mind blowing for a lot of people. Not only were they winning games, against top teams, but it was the way in which they were doing it that really blew people's minds. So tell us, for those that haven't been able to sort of experience what's going on in LATAM, firsthand or watching the streams, what has this team been up to since champions? What have you seen from them, like development, growth? Have they, had challenges, struggles? What has this team been up to?
Yeah, so Crew has been as dominant as always in Latin America. They've been on top. They've been number one every single time. And sure, sometimes you're going to look at the scores and you see that they lost 2 games. But the context is that in one of the games, Kesnet wasn't playing. And in the other game, it was a live event and it was in a studio. And they said that they couldn't communicate. They couldn't make any call outs because the
Oh,
enemy
God.
team was right in front of them. So they
Oh,
couldn't.
wasn't it? Wasn't it the one where they were like in like the fucking shoebox when they were like
Yeah.
in a moving
Yeah.
container and they're
Yeah.
literally like right in front of each other here. Like it was CPL 2003 all over again.
Oh.
Yeah, it was right in front of each other. So they weren't comfortable. They couldn't really communicate the way that they wanted to, and they lost that game. So those are the only 2 games that they've lost, and those are situations that are, something that they can't really control. Every other time that they've played, it's been a 2-0. Sure, the grand finals were a little bit closer. And even then, I mean, the grand finals, you look at them, and it's just Crew has a tendency that I feel like is my only concern for them, is that they have a tendency of starting really slow. We see it
Right.
with Leviathan. We saw it in Champions playing against Team Liquid, and we always see kind of a slow start. And it's just as they start to get momentum, as they start to get that confidence, you start seeing that Crew that made it all the way to the top 4 at the end of Champions. So, I mean, regardless, they've been looking really good. They've been trying some different things as well. I know everyone is talking about the composition that they play in Haven because they like to play a Phoenix.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's definitely weird. Sure, I know
Looking
it's
at some
weird.
Sentinels.
It was working
it was
for
exactly
them.
that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was
Okay,
working for them.
Yeah,
So.
I want to talk about this. Hello.
Yeah.
Obviously, we just saw some footage from Breeze. So normally, what we'll do is we're looking at this grand final here between Crew
Yeah.
and Leviathan. Tell us about the pick. Tell us about how this map sort of goes to them now. It's not a Crew victory, but that's beside the point because there's a fucking Phoenix in the game.
Yeah, so the thing about these first maps that we saw as well was Crew started saying that they went into this playoffs feeling a little bit unprepared. I feel like that was an outside factor, which was at the same time that Kesnet wasn't playing, and that they wanted to bring something new to the table. To be honest, we didn't see anything new in this playoffs. We didn't see anything new in this grand finals. The compositions look the same. They're still forcing that Phoenix. And then there's a really funny clip for Kesnet every single time because they won with this composition in Haven about 7 times in a row. And there was a clip where it was a meme pretty much in the region where no one wanted to play this composition. No one wanted to play him and against crew. And Kesnit was saying that people just want to play that game to lose. They're just ready to lose, you know, a little bit of banter that he was bringing. And I think it makes a lot of sense because it was a composition that is really working out well in the region. I think it's going to get a lot more counter when we get to see them in Masters. But they also said, crew also said that they're preparing to bring new things. So the biggest priority for me is going to be maybe a change there.
Yeah, I'll chime in on that too to see like what's kind of like different too for like crew, which I actually also like even before talking about Haven with this Phoenix pick is when we saw that Breeze lineup too, is that you also have Kesnit or sorry, Nags switching out from a Jet
Mhm.
to play Chamber.
Yeah.
And then they actually have Kesnit playing Jet. So there is that little change where on the big maps where you might be able to put a Chamber in your map rotation, in your map pool,
Mhm.
then cool. It's gonna be Nags because Nags could still op, he could still play a Chamber, he could still escape. Now they get double duelist, but Kesnit has been playing a lot more rifling on this Jet too, especially on Breeze. They play like LSC9 where Kesnit is like trying to push down towards mid side
Yeah.
on defense. So they're I think they're trying to cook up new things from what they've learned from other teams looking at stage 1. So it looks pretty good for that. The second map though on Haven, the Phoenix pick for Kesnit looked pretty good still in terms of how he's able to use the utility very well. Like he could still frag. He had like 4 run it backs on their attacker side on Haven. There's even like one where they were playing against like an eco, and then he was about to die and pops off the Phoenix ult, so he doesn't die while he's getting sprayed on long C. So the technicality of being able to use the agent for Kesnit on Phoenix looks really good. But overall, the agent comp though for crew, that's where it's going to get a little bit challenging because
Sure.
Yeah.
if they have to play a team like, for example, like a version 1 that's going to run it down with a bunch of utility of like a breach, a KO, and just or a Sky, for example, and you're running it back. If you're trying to fight for the spot, you're gonna lose it because you don't have the utility to push back, right? No slow orbs, no type of like real chamber or KJ utility. And then when you're going to try to play the retake, the only thing you really have for the retake is like a paranoia and a recon dart, and you're hoping that your guys are fragging on the retake too. So I think it's gonna plaster them on if they have to play against teams that are a little bit more composed into understanding how to play the Haven into the newer meta. But again, across the board for crew, they're fraggers, right? I think
Yeah.
as Seth was mentioning a couple of guys for DRX that a lot of them have a higher clutch percentage. I think you're seeing a lot of good multi-frag opportunities from players like Kesnit, from Benzino, Delzik also as well have been looking very good.
It's really been everyone that you've
Yep.
seen. I was looking at those multi kills. I was looking at the clutch potential recently. I mean, we saw a lot of Kesnit and the clutch potential that he had in champions, but he's still doing it consistently. And even for a little bit more of everyone else that have been stepping up and have been playing more aggressive in those compositions that really need you to step it up. So Mastino, for example, has been a key part of that, making sure that he's clutching. There was one map, I think it was Haven maybe, that we saw Messina clutching in scenarios where it shouldn't be happening, but he was getting away with it. They have really nice aim. They have very nice ways to get away with the kills and to take advantage to get some confidence. Because again, for me, the biggest key about crew is that if they're feeling confident, they're gonna be unstoppable until the end.
Mhm.
And this is why they got away with so many victories during VCT. They were winning over and over again. Even if they said that they weren't really prepared, they were still looking dominant no matter weird compositions they were bringing. And teams were trying different things against them, different compositions, different playstyles, and nothing could really counter crew.
Mhm.
I thought it was interesting that crew did not play Raze on Fracture.
I
At all.
think we're gonna see it. Yeah, I think we're gonna. That's the big question that I have right now too, because Kesnit has such a nice race. I mean, you look at it, and it looks so clean the way that he's entering into sites, and especially when Naxxit is also enabling that to happen, where they're both playing aggressive. And I do think it's just a matter of time. I feel like this was a little bit about disguise from them because they said they were bringing some new things, and Fracture is one of those maps where race is going to be given for a lot of other teams in a lot of other regions too.
I
I'm
agree.
looking at that comp and it's it's really strange to see. Like, I guess it's because of the players that they have. I'm sure that they won't sit back and say that this is categorically the correct way to play Fracture. But when you think about putting like Kesnet, for example, onto Raze, okay, well, what are you going to entry into site with? You can use your Raze, sure, but it's not going to be as efficient as having your Jet. I think Mazzino needs to almost swap to allow that, but then he's going to a Jet or something like that, right? Some sort of entry role. Maybe he doesn't want to. There's a lot of things that can change with that comp. I feel like that'll be reworked coming into this event because I don't see it stacking up against international comp unless you have Kesnet like go lights out. But it's just the value of a Jet on this map is, I don't know. I don't think it's justified in this case.
Yeah.
Let's say.
Yeah. I agree. Even the rest of it though still looks pretty good. Maybe I don't know. Well, actually, I'm kind of happy seeing the chamber as well instead of like a cipher or something too, because I found some good setups as well from chamber into the B heaven side where you could just TP away if you do get pressured. And again, I still find that the Jet still works with a la Sentinels if they're gonna have like the sick fault line and then Tens just updrafts and dashes into B heaven if they want to add that type of pressure. It's still very doable. But I still find that, yes, the rest of the kit that you have from Raze that's available versus the Jet, when you could paint shells into different corners, so many different hiding places, I think you're going to get much more value out of that for sure. And last but not least, I think the Sage is still a good pick, though, for a map like Icebox. Fracture. You still get a lot of good value from a Sage. There's been a round where I think you did have a troll from Mazzino when they were trying to go Sands and wall it to spawn side, and they just walled themselves on Sands, and then everybody just died. But I mean, that's just technicality. It still looks pretty good though for the rest of the comp outside of the Jet.
So the vibe I'm getting here is that crew individually look really, really good going into Masters, but some of their compositions are just odd. Like they just have some odd takes on some maps, right? There's Fracture and Behaven both have really non-standard compositions from them. Do we expect those to change, or do you think they'll stick to their guns?
I'm pretty sure that at least some of those compositions are gonna change. I mean, they said it in an interview. They said they were preparing new things, and it's also a little bit of, this time around. Sure, they have the same roster, they have the same players as last year, but the coach is not the same one. Before we had Onur, who was actually now playing or coaching. How do you guys say it? I say Leviathan. Leviathan, right? You guys say Leviathan or something like that. Yeah. And now you have Batoni and you have DDX, and both of them are really good at their job. They have a lot of experience and they've already proven and they've already talked about it publicly. The players as well preaching them and saying how good they are at really having a sense of what is going on and how they can help the team with DDX is the analyst for the team. So those little things that can be good, especially knowing that they're going to start up playing against Liquid. Means that there's got to be a change somewhere, and I'm expecting Fracture for sure. I'm expecting Haven potentially. It's just how fast they want to change into, if they want to bring something new right away or they want to wait for the right match.
Overall, I think people should shut the fuck up, like the scoreboard Stevens that think that crew kind of like fell off because they were probably looking at, oh, they lost in playoffs round 1 against a team that's unknown in the region, but fucking watch the maps. They're actually really good. They could fucking frag.
No one in their right mind is underrating this team, right? Like
it's just I don't understand it because I hear it all the time, and I saw some tier list. Crew was like all the way at the bottom. It's like, what is going on? Are you guys? Because I'm sure people are only watching, and I swear this is the case. People are only watching that last match, the last grand finals, and saying, "Oh, they lost 2 maps. They're not good anymore." You look at every single other match that they had, and they were really good because the competitive scene in the region in Latin America is getting higher and higher, and crew even recognizes it. So they know that it's challenging, and the biggest factor that they have to face is not. They're not worried about losing. They were always confident that they're gonna win. It's just the mental. They said that, for example, in Ascent, that was, that one was just a completely different map. They were ahead 10-1 and they started losing and losing and losing until they completely lost that entire map. And they said it was anxiety. It was a mental thing going on where they were just rushing, thinking that, they could finish it as soon as possible, and it just never really happened. You take away those factors, you fix that mental, that confidence to start off right away in the best way possible for crew, and they're not going to stop. I can see them again getting to the fourth place, getting to the grand finals. They really have the
Yeah.
potential. They're really good at adapting on the fly, and I think this is also a key in the region too. The adapting on the fly is so much faster than what you see in Europe, where those mid rounds or even against Team Liquid, right? They have an issue with the IGL. So how is it going to work out in the mid rounds where crew are just playing aggressive? They're just going in and they're getting away with it.
That's what you're hoping. That because crew, if they're gonna play super aggressive, and go fast into one gear, then it will play well into a problem liquid that doesn't have like a mid
Right.
round end round IGL issue. But
Yeah.
if crew are able to work a little bit with their analysts and their coaching system to maybe run defaults and a little bit more elaborated mid round calls, then I think they still have a great chance against liquid. And even on this map, like what is this beta days again with these matches. I think
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
plays well against Leviathan because they have a mirror comp, and they also like you're trying to look at, okay, how did they play the mid control at this point. I like that they're using some good wooden way smokes from Delzik to actually try to do a little bit of aggression in the beginning, but if not, it's all these off angles that you're playing that is not going to get flushed out because of the agent composition that you're playing against. So if you're gonna play against a
Mhm.
Sky that's gonna flash into the corner of B heaven, and you're trying to play that little corner on the ledge of the rafters, that's gonna push you out of position, right? So there's gonna have to be a little bit more preparation going into those type of styles if they want to keep their this comp here on Split.
Yeah, especially because we see not only in Split we can get and we get to see it a lot, but there's also other maps where they really like playing for contact, and that is the
Yep.
difference between other teams, other regions as well. That they have a different strategy in how they want to have that the first contact with the enemy. So for crew, they've been capitalizing on it, and I saw some statistics. It was every time, and it was. I know I saw it a lot in that split. It was every time Nags was getting an opening pick with that operator mid, the team was just winning the round. It was such a big factor. I think it was top two worldwide
Hmm.
for Nexus every time he got the opening pick, and it's looking really good, right? But again, it is a risk nonetheless, right? You're playing for contact. If you're gonna get counter, if you're gonna have the enemy team using that util early on to try to move you and to try to have you step away from that mid control, then that is more space and more map control that you're giving to potentially Liquid or whoever they have to face after that.
Hmm.
All right, let's move on and talk a little bit about Brazil as well, because I think,
Yeah.
anyone who's barely kept an eye on that region knows that there's a real powerhouse that's just really waiting for a chance to get onto the international stage.
Oof. Yeah.
We can show their bracket first of all, which doesn't
Yeah.
quite tell the whole story, I think, but it gives you a little bit of an idea of some of the names there. So, obviously, Loud were announced, in the wake of. I want to say champions, right? And we
Mhm.
saw like Sasi and Sadhak sort of being announced for that team, and a lot of people, everyone sort of knew them from the time on Vikings, and NIP obviously looked to pick up a team in Brazil as well.
Yeah.
So big moves happening, and you can clear to see like a lot of the big orgs, a lot of the money is looking at this region, going, okay, there's really a lot to be done here. So the run for this team, for Loud, I mean, they just demolished Keyd Stars, even against NIP. The first time in the upper final, there was one map that was close. The other two were really, really one-sided. Uh, I mean, we saw the same thing in that final match, right? The qualifying match. We can go over it quickly, but Dryad, I'd love to get your take on this team, where they're at right now, and just how far ahead of the competition they seem to be in Brazil. Now, they didn't have to play against any LATAM teams because that was the last chance qualifier.
Hmm.
We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but let's talk about Loud and why we should be expecting great things from this team.
Yeah, Loud is looking really strong in the region. They've been, at the top of the game. Before Loud, they recall Pancada de Amigos, and that was a composition, and it was the composition for the players. It was a little bit of a mix between the roster from Vikings that we got to see last year in those international events and some new players that were coming from tier 2 and really young as well. They have so much potential, so it was a little bit of
They're
a
17.
mix of experience and new players coming in, and it was really working out. We had the first insight that they were going to be dominant because they bid MIBR so early on into VCT, and people were surprised because MIBR, when you look at their roster, there's so much more experience. They're those old talent that they're looking to and that you're expecting great things from, but it was this team beating them, and after
Oof.
that it was just over and over and over again. It was Loud being so dominant, and you can see so much of the evolution that they've had from week to week, from every match where they're trying different things. So, for example, in the first match where we saw them against NIP, I'm thinking a lot about the control that they had towards mid in a map like Ascent, where they were throwing at the KO knife. They were conditioning the enemy to play a little bit slower, and that was giving them mid control. And they were doing this for the first, 7 rounds on the attacking side over and over again. And it seems like, this is the thing that they like to do. This is the thing that is working out for them. They're going to keep doing it. Then we get to see them again against NIP for the grand finals, and they're bringing something completely different that seems more standard for NA and for Brazil, where they are hitting that A side. They're cutting now. They're going this 30 seconds really quiet. They're cutting noise. Then they're hitting the side with all the utility that you would be expecting from them, and it looks so clean. You see the KO knife going in, the owl drone, the fragment towards Haven, the paranoia to generator, and then it's just all destruction. No one can prepare for that utility. Even when NIP was trying to counter them, was trying to slow them down, it was just never working. So we see a lot of different strategies that Loud has been trying to play every single match, and it seems like when they actually get to play in Masters is when we're gonna get to see a mix of all the strategies that they tried and how they're able to mix them together, how to counter a little bit more of whoever they have to face because we don't know yet.
Yeah. I'll be a negative Nancy on this one though. So
Okay.
what actually looks good for Loud at least is that they have firepower. As I think as Dan was mentioning before, they have two brand new like tier 2 rank grinders into Les and Aspis, I think is his name, right? And they're actually
Yeah.
really good. They're actually really good fraggers. I won't take that away. Sadak also has been improving in terms of just his sheer firepower with his initiator role. I think the idea around Loud still looks really good. But when I was watching this game versus an IP, one is I don't think that Loud is getting challenged enough in the region. I
For
think they're
sure.
still miles ahead against every other team currently in Brazil, and it's not even close. But the other thing too is, as Dan was mentioning, is like, yes, they like to take initial control of somewhere, cut noise, and then hit the site. And that's basically all I saw from Loud. There was no like pull rotations on the left side. There's no breaking utility on the other side as well to try to force a different type of default when they're actually cutting noise and trying to re-hit. So against a team that may get overrun on the initial site and some trades happen, what utility is going to be left for a Loud versus what's going to be available for your opponents on the retake is you're probably going to have to give the advantage for the opponents in terms of utility because you now have more to work with. You haven't broken enough utility on the other end to like weaken out your opponents on less utility for the retakes. So I think that's where there's going to be an issue for Loud going into the Masters stage if they're not working on that portion of their playstyle.
Yeah, and one of the things that I see from them, and I see what you mean too, is that the one thing that makes them different compared to Brazil is that, and we saw international events, we saw people talking about it a lot. When you look at the strategies that Brazil wants to bring, people are always thinking aggression. People are always thinking going in potentially double duelists like NIP likes to do. But the thing for Loud is that they are actually willing to slow things down when it's necessary, and that is the key for me because like I said, they've been trying different things. So you see, and Vance, you're right. You look at those grand finals, and you see them doing the same thing over and over and over
It's kind
again.
of boring. That's
Doesn't
the point.
it doesn't stop. It's insane
Yeah.
that it doesn't stop, and it was working for them so well. There was not really any counter response for NIP to try to stop that. But again, you watch a little bit of the matches before, and they seem to be trying something different. So they seem to be trying the mid control a little bit more. That is lower pushes or faster pushes. They're trying different varieties of speed to see what is going to work out and the utility that they want to invest in it. So I feel like because they already teased it, it is something that they're preparing because you have to be expecting it against those EU teams and NA teams that rely so much on the utility early on that they would like to invest that utility early on too and try to evaluate and try to get in that information.
Yeah. And Ominous, who's a prominent writer here with Rib, Run It Back, .gg just mentioned here that Les had the highest first kill first death ratio on attack in Brazil, and he plays a sentinel role, right? And I kind of saw that again. If we want to go back to the Loud versus NIP on Fracture, I think
Yeah.
just the comp in itself that was used by NIP was a little bit cap against that matchup for Loud because they weren't. I don't think they were playing a breach. I don't think they were playing any Rays. So when they're actually trying to execute in the B site and Les is just hanging out there on the top of B heaven and can just play in that doorway and just pop everybody off, it's just so easy to get like multi-kills at that point. I'm like, who the fuck is watching the top of B site to try to take him down? Right? I didn't find any good executions, unfortunately, for NIP in that matchup. I'd like to say that they probably had something better versus Leviathan, but unfortunately I didn't get to watch that series. But Loud definitely looks miles ahead in terms of preparation versus the rest of Brazil. But I think, quite honestly, it's going to be that same storyline where we have high hopes for Brazil going into the international stage, and then they just get fucking shit on. And I hope that's not going to be the case, but I think it will be.
And it's hard, especially with Loud, right? Because Loud is the team that we look at and we know that is looking good, but they're not going to be playing in the group stages. They're not going to be playing early on.
That too.
So you only get to see them on those playoffs, and it's already with really competitive teams. So they might go 1-2, 2-2, and that's still not going to look good enough in the eyes of that, the international and everyone else watching. Is like, oh, they only won one match. It's like, yeah, they were in playoffs already. They didn't get to prove themselves in the group stage, and I feel like at this point for Brazil, they really need to prove themselves. They really need to show that they're capable of making it all the way through. And I mean, for Loud, it's going to be tough. I know even the players said that it was weird how they were not playing early on, because it is more risky. Like, you don't really know what's going to happen and who's going to be playing against you.
Yeah, and it's like an unintended feature, I guess. And for many teams, it actually does them more harm than good. You know what I mean? It's pretty rare to see this sort of being able to skip the group stage, but there are 3 slots obviously from the BR LATAM region, and there had to be a last chance qualifier to decide the last team we're going. So Leviathan, of course, had to go up against NIP, which are the 2 second place teams from their regional play. Obviously, Vans didn't get to see this one. Fair enough. I mean, God knows what you do over there. I mean, who knows what time of day you're fucking watching these VODs. But what's the expectation, Dryad, coming into this matchup here? We talk about how maybe Loud, have some flaws and maybe are a little bit sort of straightforward, whereas Crew looks so strong. Does that sort of affect how you perceive the 2 regions now going head to head at a matchup like this?
I have a lot of trust in the work that Anura is able to bring to a team like Leviathan after he was not with Crew anymore. And we saw their results right away for Leviathan. They were giving the answers. They were bringing new things. They were bringing compositions and players that were really, really working out together. So honestly, if I had to make a bet into this one, I would have gone with Leviathan. I was going to say, yeah, this is the team that's going to make it to the top. This is the team that is going to win against NIP, because NIP, even in Brazil, I know there's a meme where they say that they play jail Valorant, and it's just basically not relying so much on utility, pretty much going in, relying on the kills. And it makes sense when you look at the compositions. They really, really, really like to play the double duelist. And I mean, it worked, right? But I don't know how it's gonna work in the international stage for NIP. I have a lot of questions about what and how much they're willing to change for this international event, because they like to play aggressive, and even if they're not playing the double duelist, they're playing compositions that are fast paced, that don't really rely on utility, but they're putting themselves in very risky positionings. And
Still play
that's
Reyna.
something that, yeah, it's so
Pissing me
easy
off.
to punish.
I'll tell you what, like, at the end of the day, anybody that signs with NIP, at least based on the track history, has an uphill battle right away. Like, when they were in EMEA, all I was hearing from like people who had left or people who had worked there and so on, and then after they left, everyone was very happy to talk about it, that like the management system, I firmly believe that if you have a group of players and you hire a coach and you hire a manager, if you need anybody else to get involved in that, you're doing something wrong. Like, if you're getting the CEO of a company or any of these, like, the business people, the people who do not know the game and are there to cover 20 titles or whatever, just to cover the overall org, those motherfuckers should not have a say in anything. They don't get, like, it's insane. But apparently, from what I'd heard, some people who hadn't got a clue what was going on were a little bit too hands-on when it came to roster suggestions, and so on, and building all the iterations of the team, or most of them at least. So if that's the case, and if they're still doing that, I think like it just ruins the creative freedom of the players. It makes you feel like you're put in a box, because not only do you not have control over necessarily how you play the game, You don't have control over who you play with or anything like that. We had a situation where, if I remember correctly, and again, I will need to go back and double check this, but I'm almost certain at one point NIP removed a player against the wishes of the team because the organization was like, no, we think we need someone different. And it wasn't because the player was toxic or anything like that, which would be completely acceptable in that case for the org to step in and say, no, you know what, like this guy's being racist or sexist or whatever, we're getting rid of him right away. Absolutely. No, it was a case that the org had apparently said, actually, we think that this guy's going to get us the win better. So we're against the coach, against the players.
We covered this, I think, right?
I think we did, yeah.
Yeah.
It's ludicrous. And I desperately hope they're not doing that still, because it honestly, it just makes an ass of the coach, of the manager, of the players, because people sit back. No one's going to go back and go, why did the CEO of such and such organization drop that player? No, they're going to go, why did these fucking idiots who are on the roster make that decision? Why did they do this? And it just makes them look worse. It hurts my heart to see.
Why is it that, how does it work out that Loud skip the group stages, but Crew have to play in them, right? They're both first place teams from their respective regions. Like, who decided this?
Wasn't there like an LCQ they had to play or something between Crew and NIP to determine that?
No, it was Leviathan and NIP to decide the third slot.
Who was going to qualify, but yeah, I don't know. From what I heard, no one really agrees with that decision. Just because it doesn't really make a lot of sense. And, how do you determine that? How do you determine, sure, one more team from Brazil is going to qualify and is going to go to Masters, is going to be playing there. But that doesn't mean, I feel like it would make more sense based on what we saw last year and based on even the results from Crew for them to be the one getting to those playoffs. And Loud even wanted to go to the group stages. Again, Brazil, they really need to prove themselves into this one.
I do feel like
Crew obviously went much further, right?
Yeah.
At Champions, and they've got it's
a
bit arbitrary, right?
I don't think this is a decision based on merit. Unfortunately, when I look at this tells me that
shocking.
All right, this tells me that they want to grow the Brazilian region a little bit, and I think that when you look at Brazil, they have a massive fan base. But giving them playoff games, it's higher value, and I guess the hope is, for me at least, when we were talking about Crew earlier, it kind of seems like they're suffering from success, right? When we talk about the region in general getting better, I think they're a large reason that happens, not only because of the motivation of seeing some of your country or regionmen succeed like that on an international level, that then you go, oh shit, we really can do this. But then you move to the point that they're then bringing all of this experience back and scrimming within the region and just building everybody up. Combined, things are getting a little bit more stable, times going on. You're just you have more organizations and less, shady dealings as the years go forward. I think that the region can definitely. I don't think Brazil is performing nearly as well as they should be based on other FPS titles. So it makes sense that we want them to be more involved in it. But then the question, and this is where they've taken a risk, in my opinion, are they ready for it? Because if they're not, and we put them in playoffs and they just get fucking slapped out of it, and let's say Crew still make it through and then Crew make a deep run, everyone's just going to be really pissed off that they made it there. And to me, that almost damages it more than it builds the region, because then everyone's mad at you. They're like, oh, these fucking guys got in here. It's not their fault. They didn't, make that choice. They didn't go, fuck you, Crew, we're taking the spot. So I feel like it's one of those things that's really hard to figure out where it came from. But for me, I just look at it and go, okay, we haven't had Brazilian teams in playoffs. We haven't had Brazilian teams play that well. They want to put them deep into the tournament, give them an opportunity for the Brazilian fans to still stick around and watch. And hopefully that will, maybe inspire the region to grow a little bit more and so on. Fingers crossed.
But again, it's so difficult, right? Because they're going to be in playoffs. They face difficult teams. They get one win. They lost the next two. And like I said before, there's only one win, maybe 2 wins that they're able to get to that, I think, top 5, top 6. And sure, in paper, the results are going to be good. But when you look at the matches, people are still going to say Brazil. They only played 2 matches and they were not really looking too dominant. So.
For sure. I do hope, though, because from the conversations we've had with EMEA teams, they were, this is before we ended up with, FPX getting kicked out and all that sort of stuff. We were talking to FPX about the weight of first seed, of how important it was. And every team agreed within EMEA that everyone wanted to be number one because you got an extra week at home or in the wherever you wanted. You could boot camp, you could just sit at home, you could go to the event early, I guess, if you wanted to, and use the prac rooms, whatever. And so it gave you that extra time to prep, which someone like Fnatic would definitely like, I'm sure, with the core 3. But then you add on to that they're able to watch all the other games. They don't have to show anything on a new meta potentially. Like, they could change up so much and come in with that all just under a cloak. Meanwhile, their opponents have had to play how many games to get there, and they get to watch that. So that can be an advantage, but it, again, very much depends on the team. It's like putting a short range sprinter into a marathon. It's like he might be a better runner than everyone else in there, but Christ, if he can't run for 5 hours, well, then the slow guys are going to beat him. I think that I want to see the level brought up here, and I think we have the right conditions for it this time around, with especially with EMEA being a little bit weaker. This could be a Royal Rumble.
This is the one chance, really, and it's gonna be NIP that really have to prove themselves early on, right? Because they're gonna play against a Fnatic that is not looking too good. They're gonna have potentially those 2 subs, not gonna have the best player, and so you gotta take advantage. And if you don't take advantage from it at the beginning, and if we don't get to see NIP making it past that first match, I don't think we're gonna see much from them right after. It is the one chance, the one opportunity, because the group itself, it's looking pretty competitive, especially looking at NIP and the compositions that they've been bringing to the table. I mean, they really have to step it up, and that is another factor, right? This is the last team that qualified for Masters, and this is a team that qualified on April 1st, and they were just flying. I don't know if they just got there or I mean, the preparation time is going to be way less. And even looking at the compositions, if you really want to make it competitive, you're gonna have to change your double duelist. You're gonna have to change that Reina. Do they have enough time to do that? Do they have enough time to see how they can counter from that first match Fnatic? I don't know. I don't think it's enough time.
Yeah, it's a very curious situation that we find these 2 regions in, just on virtue of how the tournament is sort of structured. Hopefully Loud can find their feet quickly and actually be able to do more than just tread water in that double elimination. At least they have, I mean, playing two matches and being out, that's going to sting. So last question for you, Dryad. Between the 2 regions, who do you have more confidence in to go further? Who do you feel feels stronger right now, like a true competitor here on the international stage?
I'm all in for crew. I'm willing to bet they already proved themselves once. We know that they can do it again. They've been looking competitive in the region. They, like Mitch was saying, they raised the level of how competitive Latin America can be, and even crew was even recognizing that everything was a lot harder every single time that they were playing. So it's also the only team that has made it to every international event too. Those little things that you have to take into account: how comfortable they feel on stage, how much experience they were able to get last time, how hungry they are to make it, to those grand finals after losing last year. And you look at those matches, you look at the way that they had to play in that bracket, and it seems like they could have really made it to the grand finals, right? So I know crew is going to be hungry for it. I know the coaches have a lot of faith in them as well, and the players have a lot of faith in the coaches. It's a relationship that really goes back and forth between everyone having so much synergy. And another factor too, you see all these teams recently, and teams that are coming from regions. I'm thinking of Garden, I'm thinking of all these teams that really seem like have a lot of potential. But the time that they've been playing together and the experience that crew has is something that really no one can match.
One quick thing on that as well. We have some. I've completely blanked. I had a whole thing on the back of that. Never mind.
Okay,
stop working.
No worries. Look, thank you very much for joining us, Dryad, on the show and giving us a bit of a teaser. Where can we find you in the meantime for those that want to follow more of your work?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter as Dan Dryad, and I post all my casting and everything that I do there. So yeah.
Great.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Seeing
Thanks,
more
Dan.
of you in the future. Thanks for coming on the show. And have a good one. Good luck, of course, to crew at Masters, Dan.
Yeah, let's go crew.
All right, so that definitely paints a picture of 2 regions that maybe don't get as much love as they should on this show. Thank you very much to obviously Seth and of course Dan Dryad for coming on and talking through that with us. We're going to after the break circle back a little bit more here and talk about game changes for a moment and start to preview Masters ourselves. Yeah, these 3 knuckleheads are going to give some of their thoughts on what we should expect. So stick around. More Valoranting on the other side of the break. You better not be going anywhere. If you've been enjoying Valoranting, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you get every episode hot off the presses. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Valoranting. If you missed on the other side of the break, we got a great chance to talk about what was going on in LATAM, Brazil, and in South Korea. And hearing from, some of the representatives from those regions was great. So hopefully
Mitch,
that's...
I was gonna say, man, your hair was like out of place. Were you like rushing somewhere to get somewhere? And
Yeah,
get
I know. I had to
back?
take
Like,
I had to
holy
take a
shit.
shit. I'll be
Oh,
honest with
okay.
you, and I had to be pretty quick. I had to fit it in the break. Vance is asking me that question as if I'm not going to answer it truthfully, but I mean, I'll be honest with you. I went to work. All right, I had Fogo de Chao last night. You know, that Brazilian barbecue. Yeah, so
Oh,
I'm
good.
working on it. Right, that's all I'm going to
I'm
say.
jealous.
That shit was
I'm jealous.
so good. Anyway,
I-
another thing that I really enjoy, gentlemen, is game changes, and that's been going on, of course, over in North
Segue.
America.
Yep.
And again, I look the tournament format here is really interesting because they use a Swiss stage, which is not that common, right? But what it does do well, Swiss stages, is that it handles large amounts of teams, right? So large signups. Obviously, this is like a great, it's a decent solution when you have open signups here, and this game changes. I think we had 32 teams,
Correct.
that played through a Swiss stage here, and then the top 16. So half of those teams then get to move on to the closed qualifier, which is going to be like 16 team double elimination.
Yeah.
That's what this bracket is here right now. So we kind of skip past the Swiss a little bit, but plenty of names we kind of know, right? C9 White, obviously GX3, previously, Complexity GX3, previously just GX3. Immortals, obviously version X, which is Anders' team that he's now coaching right now. CLG Red, Genji Black, Shopify Rebellion, Xset female, Dignitas female, Misfits Black. So a lot of these sort of big orgs having waded into the pools here. And this is the lower bracket. So, it indicates that Dignitas female, CLG Red, Dart Monkeys in version X, even though they sort of lose their upper bracket games, they make their way through. Version X had to go up against Cloud9 White, who didn't drop a map at all. And yeah, maybe a great time to sort of quickly check back in with that team because they are doing really well as per usual. I think as the rumblings of this like inter-regional rivalry between them and like a G2 Gozen or something similar continue to churn out, we're still seeing these really, really strong domestic performances from these teams. I have to say this series, Mel pops off. I mean, I think over the two maps, she's 35-18. So very, very good series from her. But all the Cloud9 White play very clean. It's 13-7, 13-4 against Version X. But before that, obviously, they go up against... wait, is this a lower bracket game? Which one is this one?
This one should still be towards the Swiss format. So,
right. This is so early on. Right.
So yeah, like C9 still probably is the team to beat looking at the game changers so far. I think the other ones are really trying to catch up to it. But what I really do like from at least the more iterations that we're seeing of game changers in North America is that the competition doesn't only stem into the second team now being CLG Red or Dignitas or Shopify Rebellion. There's more teams stepping up to the plate. For example, as you mentioned before, Team X with Anders now coaching the team, it looks pretty good for that team as well. The only thing that I find that kind of sucks is that, looking at the Swiss format, looking at the teams that sign up, like their 32 slots signed up very, very quickly. And then Mel said, oh, it's so great to see the representation and the competition and like and how like there's just so much participation from these teams going into the game changers that I hope they continue to stick together and get these reps in, and then boom, and then suddenly after the Swiss format, after the double elimination format, apparently the TL like lit up with already the unsigned unrestricted agents. Players are now blowing up their rosters and trying to just like rebuild their rosters once again. So
right, what? So
kind of sucks for that.
yeah, hang on. So this is for those teams that were signed, right, by big orgs.
Yeah, so I think those are still around. I think one of the teams I know specifically is probably Solaire. That's like one of the unsigned teams that has like Pterodactyl and Heart, and they had a pretty decent run. They almost made it into the top 16, top 8 when they were playing their unsigned games or their matches rather. Okay. So it looked there was some good competition. There was good potential to see more coming out from this team when the reps come in. But unfortunately, that's one of the teams that just kind of like blew up.
Yeah, why are these? Yeah, fucking Matt Elmore. I mean, this is kind of wild, right? Like these teams really, only for the short term. You really think that that's not the point of any of this. It's not the
Yeah.
point of game changes in itself. I mean, look at
Yeah.
Cloud9 White. I mean, this is a team that, sure, I mean, in the game changes scene were and are very strong, but this is a roster that had to face defeat after defeat, competing in in VCT tournaments as well. You know what I mean? Like a team that suffered no shortage of hardship and just getting used to losing to a lot of these really crazy teams to go up against. So Mel's extremely qualified to make this comment as well, and to say, like, just fucking keep
Play.
it together. You see what you can do
Yeah.
with these teams. So a little bit concerning to see that happen, to be sure. But there are positive signs, right? I think we can talk about this Version X roster now, right, which is more recently formed with Anders now at the helm. They ended up qualifying as well through both stages here. They go up against the Immortals roster. This is in Swiss, if I'm not mistaken, because they don't end up playing Immortals through the. I know they do. So this is the upper round of 16 that actually go up against Immortals. So the winner of this game goes on to play Cloud9 White. And obviously, it's not going to go well for any team that does that. But Version X absolutely in the mix. They qualify through the lower bracket up against some really quality teams. So like you kind of said, Vansili, it's not just 1, 2, or 3 teams anymore.
Yeah, especially with the work that Anders is putting with this team. And I even think, if I'm not mistaken, Version X came up with like 2 replacements, like maybe a week prior, going into the Game Changers, Cat Triggered being one of them. And I think they're looking pretty decent right now to make a deep run into the Game Changers. I mean, the playoffs are starting tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. And it's into that top 8 competition where it's going to look pretty good. I think we could continue to talk about the next team here, and that's where I want to like actually praise like those
All right.
teams that unsigned stick together, try to see how it goes. Dart Monkeys, we don't know who they are. We
Well,
don't know how they came together, but
yeah, I mean, this is the only unsigned team in the in the
Exactly.
teams that qualified. I know. I mean, SK's on this team, and she was like she was rank 5 on the
Ooh.
Overwatch ladder. So she's like capital G gamer, right? And this roster obviously is, I think they go up against Gen G Black and end up falling to the sort of lower bracket. They get matches up against Roulette to sort of qualify, and they're able to do so. So really promising sign for a team with some degree of pedigree, right?
Yeah.
I think that if I have a look at their run, I would suggest that a lot of those big name rosters they're able to dodge, with the exception of Gen G Black, to sort of to go on this run. But still, really impressive performance from this roster, right? And that means this main event now is going to be spicy. I mean, they had to go up against TSMX in their first game in the main event, so definitely a big challenge here. But this qualifying process has allowed us to unearth some of these, these diamond teams that are like diamonds in the rough type teams that can really turn up on the big stage. So.
Daniel, also, if you don't mind scrolling down a little bit more too, so we can look at the roster that has their coach actually for Dart Monkeys. So their coach Zoe. So I'm not gonna take any type of praise for this type of research. It's all of my co-caster that I'm casting with this weekend. That's Cozy Josie. That's been talking to every single one of these teams, and she spoke to Zoe, the coach that you have here for Dart Monkeys, and Zoe was basically a type of player that realized that she wasn't good enough to play at like the high level, but understood the game very well and had a lot of fun actually studying the teams and building up strats and stuff. So they're a roster that actually doesn't have any type of financial backing in a roster. Zoe does all the VOD reviews, and she also gives like homeworks to the rest of the team, very similar to what Dream does with Cloud9. To like, hey, how do you think you're going to play against this team, that team? What are their tendencies? How can we counter that? And then they're really trying to build together like this strategy. So their first big test is really going into this TSMX matchup, but I like the mentality that this team has going into the bracket. So thank you, Cozy Josie, for all that research. Shout out to you for the hard work that you're putting into researching on these teams, and I'm looking forward to see if Dart Monkeys could actually make that impact into the deep run in the double limb top 8.
Now, we had a bit of a snafu during sort of these qualifying matches through the Swiss and double elimination bracket, where for Complexity GX3, of course, had a player that it's interesting we're using this tweet as a reference, as I don't think either of these individuals were involved, but essentially they let a male coach of a female team was allowed to play in a match instead as an emergency sub for a player that wasn't able to sort of make it, who couldn't get to the game on time. So yeah, obviously pretty interesting. Now, from what I can glean here, they FF'd map number 1 and they brought the coach in for map number 2. The problem is obviously is that I think it's like one of the fundamental rules of game changers that all your players must be female, or identify as non-male. So yeah, I'm not sure. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but this doesn't happen unless it's allowed to happen by admins, right? Well, the admins aware of this?
I mean,
right.
They have to at some point because
Mitch, are you muted? Talk for me.
Hello.
I can't hear Mitch.
Hello.
Yeah, I mean,
oh, there you go.
Hello.
Yeah.
So, do you know what it was? My mic must have been transmitting for 30 seconds because I had a window pop up on my Discord and go like, "Blue," and I didn't see what it said. So I've been like frantically scrolling through settings, being like, "What have I just done?" But yeah, okay, I obviously just muted.
Nice.
Yeah. So I'm sorry about that, boys.
Oh, good. You look like you were going to say something though. So.
I was, but now we've had the muted discussion, so I have no idea what that was. Well, I'll come back up with it in a sec.
Okay.
Man. That's
anyway,
so
Vance,
good.
you were
That's
saying.
So good. What was I saying? So we're getting to the point where yes, the coach that played. I mean, it's not just any ordinary male coach, right? It's fucking Johnny Bombs Quatch of formerly Team 3D, Counter-Strike 1.6 legend, a Team 3D NY Counter-Strike Source combined pickup from the Playboy Mansion during the CGS days.
Fucking Jesus, that's a lot of
good.
words.
Yeah, he is good. I mean, I had to shout out to my boy Johnny.
Combined pickup from the Playboy Mansion.
Yeah, during the CGS days. You don't remember that?
Dude, no.
Vans,
I was like 4 years old, bro.
Okay. Yeah. So it was like 2006, I think, when the CGS was formed. I mean, now Jason.
I wasn't even a fucking gamer then. I think I was living in the country, running around in the fucking park, waving sticks. But carry on.
Did you say 2006?
Then? Yeah, I think so. History. You're 8. History lesson real quick. TLDR. Counter-Strike Source comes out. They're trying to put esports in, like they're trying to create esports and before its time, before even Twitch came out. And then you had DirecTV that actually bought some airtime to be able to create a league there where they would have a combine and pick up players from different games, such as Counter-Strike Source. I think it was Forza, Dead or Alive 4, FIFA, and other games. I think it was like 7 games in total or whatnot. And then you would have like this super team from like different cities from around North America and some from around the world, and you would compete for a prize pool. All of these players were salaried. They had GMs, they had coaches. DJ Wheat was one of them. Like Torbull, Jason Lake, like all the big names that were back in the day were also the GMs of those teams. And when they did the combine, everybody was at the Playboy Mansion, and they had like the Playboy bunnies and all that too. And then they fucking drafted Team 3D NY, Johnny Bombs Quatch, and that was pretty much it. So that's a history lesson there. That said, back into the topic, game changers. They actually utilized Johnny Quatch to actually sub. They allowed Johnny Quatch somehow to sub for this team. Thankfully, they still lost the map, right, for complexity. But I don't know how that slipped through the cracks and that Bombs was able to play.
I feel like they were probably where the admins were waiting, right? Map 1 was forfeit as far as I remember. So they've already waited. That must be 15 minutes minimum for that map to be forfeit. I imagine we're into because they would then have, is it here 10 minutes between the matches? So if we assume 15 minutes at the start of the match and they can't field a roster, okay, forfeit that 10 minutes later. So 25 minutes. And I assume there was a broadcast going on, right? So we're 25 minutes in. The pressure, everyone's like, guys, come on, we gotta fucking start this game. Someone get it on. 25, 30 minutes go on. They see someone join the server and they're like, oh, we can play with this player. My assumption is that they didn't say, we'll play with our coach who is male. I assume that wasn't, stated very clearly or something. They just rushed into it and it was lost in the moment, maybe. But because if it was an active decision that, they were completely aware, oh, this player that's just joined the female tournament is male, that's, just very strange that they decided to let it go ahead because you know that even if you win, the result is going to be overturned. So I don't know why you'd even bother.
So I understand that there were extenuating circumstances on the person, you know, for this person not being able to come to the game, and I would consider them to have been on compassionate grounds. Yeah, let's use compassionate grounds. So again, obviously, regrettable for them that they released a tweet longer to explain themselves. You can go and find that if you want to. I don't think it's really. I'm not particularly interested in having a dig at the person for that. It's just an interesting situation, and I think that the admins have acknowledged that it was an oversight on their part. I think to allow the game to proceed in the fashion that it did. Honestly, it comes down to a judgment call that was, you know, in hindsight, the incorrect one. So it's fine. Obviously, Complexity GX3 don't advance any further. They don't qualify for the main event. So that's obviously regrettable, but these things do happen. But Dart Monkeys do. So good luck to them, and obviously the rest of the signed teams that will be playing. And again, that's something worth keeping an eye on for sure. So that's running at the moment. You can check that out. I use VLR.GG to scoreboard Steve and that. You guys can do the same thing. It's not hard to be a host of the show. I can tell you that right now.
To quickly just say as well for the people at home, I think, you know, our viewers in general are pretty chill, I think. But, you know, I guess this was a good example for myself of why not to jump to conclusions as well, not to knee-jerk react to those things, because when we discussed it privately, when we were running through the show yesterday, I was fucking outraged when I heard a player didn't show up, because there is, you know, I was almost going to say there's no excuse, but there is very much so. In this situation, it was 100% okay. I don't think anybody would hold a grudge from that team or from otherwise. When you suffer, you know, a bereavement in a family or anything like that, absolutely, these sort of things can knock you off for a couple of days. But yeah, I mean, natural reaction is to kind of go, oh, a player salary, you know, you're like an actual professional player. You're not going to show up to a match. What the fuck? And you just assume it's laziness or whatever. But it's an important aspect to not just jump the gun. And you can imagine that if somebody's going through a tough time, if they've lost a loved one and it's starting to affect them so much that they're, you know, missing their job or something like that, that's a pretty serious thing. And if they were to go on Reddit or something and see, oh, this fucking dumbass didn't show up to the game, blah, blah, blah. It's not good, you know, for people that are in a bad spot already. So I think it's something we can all do a little bit of a better job, just thinking a little bit before we speak, I guess, or before we judge people in those situations.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on. If you want to judge something, you can judge our shit takes about Masters, because we've got fucking plenty of them. Obviously, the hype video was pretty sick. With every sort of Valorant esports event, there's like a real underlying theme. This one is what? Into the Nightmare, I think?
The spider spike fucking scared me. Not gonna lie.
I mean,
yeah, I get that.
Pretty trippy, right? It's pretty fucking trippy. You know, that's like, well, awesome. Okay.
This is very last time at school ... If we have to go to that translation style, it looks very zombie-esque and shit's about to go down definitely at Masters, and it gets me hyped for that for sure.
I'm really disappointed because in the last video we had some bare butt cheeks, so I feel like we've really gone, you know, a step backwards in this one. But other than that, things are looking pretty good. Also, when it says like, "What are you afraid of?" That's what I'm. I didn't know that. I couldn't have answered that before I saw this video, but yeah, that's what I learned.
I actually turning into a spider.
Exactly. And I also like when I think it has the sound of like the spike about to blow up, and when it blows up, it's actual spikes that comes out too. Yo, fucking props to the creative team for Riot to be able to put some cool shit and some hype shit for these events.
Every time, man.
Ready for it. I'm ready for Iceland. Well, I'm not really ready for it because I'm sitting here, but you know, as a spectator and a fan, I'm ready for it.
It's like all nightmare masks, and they stick like vipers in there as well. It's kind of
that has to be the trophy. That mask has to be the trophy.
Yeah, probably is. I mean, very clever. I think this is again, no one really does it like Riot in Valorant, at least when it comes to how like they create branding and like a theme around their events. So it's really effective storytelling from some minds that, you know, some creative minds that don't really have any equal in esports. So you know me, chat. You know, I like to be pretty critical where it's due, but this is not one of those situations. I think like you're absolutely off your fucking rocker if you don't think this is the best way to sort of market your esports event, and no one's even coming close right now. So kudos to Riot. So first, the way this tournament works, for those wondering, is that there are a number of teams, not from every region, but there are a number of teams that will automatically sort of skip the group stage, right? And they are G2 Esports from EMEA, The Guard from North America, Paper Rex from APAC, and Loud from LATAM and Brazil. So those are the teams. Now, it would also be FPX. They are absent. Now, Liquid don't get a free pass. They have to play through the group stages.
I mean, they got a free pass to this event because they didn't qualify.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
So they can't complain about not being in playoffs when they didn't even make the event. That would be something. But
what would you guys think? Should they have played M3C?
No,
or does it
M3C
only make sense because
wouldn't
he
have
got
been able to
fourth?
go.
M3C,
That's true. That's true.
What
That's
would
not.
be the point,
That's just
you know?
pointless.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
oh,
I forgot about
M3C have qualified the next day. M3C cannot go, so now Liquid.
And then because of that, we invite team. Oh yeah, exactly. You play Na'Vi after. Then you lose to Na'Vi, and then be like, you know what? Now we could invite Team Liquid.
Yeah. Obviously, and you know, it's funny. Like when we heard about Liquid going, you know, Soulcast obviously tweets. Soulcast is tweeting like, "Hey, we're gonna really like reinvent stuff from the ground up. We're really gonna sort of flip the script on." And I'm reading this like, this sounds like somebody whose team was like on the fucking rocks before they found out they were qualifying. The way that he writes that tweet was like, "We're just gonna fucking change everything." And I'm thinking, if you're at that point, like, you know, obviously there's a big part of him saying like, "Hey, we want to justify our position here," and there is a pathway to a Cinderella story for this team, especially when like the Fnatic are a little bit incomplete going into this tournament. But yeah, I got the impression that Liquid were not long for this world based on how Soulcast was tweeting.
Yeah, let me tell you something, right? I'm gonna tell you what Tom told me yesterday, and it was Team Liquid. Now, this is me at the start, then I'll jump to Tom. So just to set the scene, Team Liquid, they don't qualify. Now, what happens when a team doesn't qualify, and especially as consistently as Team Liquid? Now, we have to be honest with ourselves. Team Liquid take a lot of risks with the comps that they run. So I think them coming into this event and saying we're going to change things up, that's fantastic because you've been playing pretty risky at times. And there's a lot of things that they can do to mitigate a lot of the risks, but they've wanted to surprise teams. They wanted to try new things. All right. I think they're going to go back to, they're going to try and play on meta. I think it'll be an opportunity for that. A team like Liquid who doesn't consistently hit success, you're going to start to sit back and go, okay, what is going wrong here? You know, do we need to pull in an IGL or something? Do we need to make roster changes? And we've seen that mentality from Team Liquid before. Tom made a very good point, which was, who are you going to kick? If you were to kick someone on Liquid, it is a very simple, without going into any rumors or anything like that, it's actually just a logical deduction. Are you going to kick Scream, Yumpy, Navera? Fuck no. Their value is far too high for you, both as brand and as players. They deliver consistently, and they can play fucking anything. Yumpy will play any agent in the fucking world, and he'll still be better than everyone else. So those three, they're safe. You know, those guys are not going to come in and go, "Ooh, I might get kicked after this." And even if they did, what's going to happen if Screen gets kicked? Someone's just going to pick them up in a heartbeat, build a team around them, and probably be the best team in the world in 5 fucking months. You know, or in 5 minutes maybe. So they're not going anywhere. So then you're left with Soulcast and Link. Well, who's going to go out of those two? Link's been playing unbelievably. He's a smoker. He's very diverse as well. I think he's more core to the team and more difficult to replace than Soulcast. The good thing about that is if you were to assume that Soulcast would be the one to go, not because he's being, you know, shit or anything, but just because someone has to if you're going to make that change, if you're going to bring an IGL or anything like that. Well, the good thing is that my worry would be, coming into this event then, if anything like that has happened in the background, you're going to have players who are now fearing for their career and so on and so forth. As I said, Scream, Navera, we're not expecting them to go anywhere. Link, pretty much the same thing. I think he's going to feel pretty secure in his position, and also that he'll find a team if he was to get kicked anyways, but I don't think that would be the case. Then the question is, okay, let's assume it's Soulcast. Again, an assumption here, not trying to say anything. We then say, well, this dude already performed under those exact same conditions. He was literally going to be kicked from the team, or like that was the discussion, the rumor, playing pretty terribly back in first strike, turned it around and became an unbelievable player practically overnight. And when most people have written him off, it's one of the things I admire him the most for. And, you know, I was critical of him back at first strike. You know, me and Sue did that death segment. That was some fun on Reddit. But you know, I was critical of him, and I stand by that criticism. But the second that he turned that shit around, I was messaging him to like, "You're unbelievable!" Like the way that he just switched his play was nuts. So I kind of believe in Team Liquid, even if the sort of stuff that you'll hear in the background of like maybe the team is going to disband or maybe some of the players will have their career being threatened. But honestly, after Tom made that point to me that like you're looking at Soulcast or Link realistically, and I was like, I can get behind that. I see that perspective, and I don't think that either of those players are the kind of guys that will let themselves go like, oh, I need to play good here, and oh, I'm really nervous. Like they're going to come out and go, fuck it. If I'm good enough, I'll do it now. I'll prove it now. And they've done it before.
They'll turn it into big dick energy for sure.
Exactly. And if they get rid of the wild comps, if they come in and play meta or play something more comfort or try to build around screamers, there's so many options that they have if they're saying they're changing things up drastically, then that's scary as shit. Because on the one hand, you've got a team that on paper, if they're just some random team, they're probably at a disadvantage now after the way that they got here and all these things we've talked about. But the reality is, with it being Team Liquid and then with them coming in with this fiery attitude and having proven that they can perform under these kind of conditions before in the past, I sort of have faith in them somehow.
You lost your mic there at a very crucial moment, I feel.
I feel he was still talking, though.
I was.
Oh, back. We still have you.
Sorry, the hotel Wi-Fi let me down there. I don't know how long I was gone for, but the point was that...
you only cut out for like 2 seconds, 3 seconds.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay, perfect. Yeah. So yeah, I was just finishing the point anyway. So you got the tail end of it, that Liquid will be potentially a threat to some teams, because if you honestly look at it, at what teams are sort of scared of going up against teams that they haven't played before, it's if they pull something weird out of the bag, if they surprise you. Well, if Team Liquid come in and say, we're going to play completely different than ever, regardless of what that looks like, Jesus Christ, I don't want to be surprised by Yumpy, Navera, Scream, and Solkus and Link, who have got something to prove. That's a scary to come up against. Now, they might come in here and just shit the bed. It's possible, right? That's the risk with it. But I think with their track record, they're not a team that you can write off just because of the situation that they're potentially in.
Yeah. Look, I think that I look. I mean, out of the teams that Europe is sending, still very strong contingent in general, right? And I wouldn't be too worried if I were them.
FPX would have won. That's all I'm saying.
Yep. All right, let's have a look at our groups. Let's have a look at Group A. We'll do some preds here. I think we can do. We'll probably do it towards the end. I will show these first, and then we'll show like some of the opening matches. But here's Group A: Fnatic versus NIP, who well, they have to qualify through LCQ to get here. So maybe not exactly in the kind of shape that they need to be, even with a weakened Fnatic. That one is really up in the air, right? Who fucking knows how this team's going to perform? But we're asking a lot of Fnatic to be able to sort of turn up. We will talk more about what the Fnatic team looks like in a second, though. So we'll just go through these first. DRX, Zeta Division. Yeah, interesting. It was kind of interesting to hear what Mitch was sort of saying about this Zeta Division team, that there is a team that really respects them, but most teams are really writing them off at this point.
You know, I'll give you a quick caveat on that, though, because I did ask around about crew at the last event at Champs. I said, hey, EU teams, y'all are scrimming. How are they doing? And most of what I heard was they're dog shit. And then I remember my first cast back after my throat infection. Oh, well, actually, all 3 of my casts were crew games, and they were all fucking bangers. We rolled up, and I was doing crew, and I was like, oh, for crew Furia. I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, this is going to be horrendous from what I'd been hearing. And I remember 5 rounds in. It was the 5th round. You're just like, shit, these guys are sick. Like, I've just been punked by the whole EU community. What the fuck is this? So I honestly wonder at times, like, if people think, it probably doesn't happen, but it's a fun thought experiment that, like, if you knew that this team is friends with that team and they communicate, because that is a thing. Like, we knew back when we were playing that if we scrim against this team, this other team is going to find out because they're friends. They'll find out about what comp we're running, roughly how we like to play. So you would be a little bit cautious. You would maybe play an offhand comp, or you would run it slightly differently than you would want to. Maybe it's something like that they're coming in and saying, like, let's, when they're playing certain teams, they're throwing or just fucking around on purpose to throw them off. I highly doubt it, though, because for the most part, you're going to take these weeks as gold dust. You're going to want to just improve so much. You don't care about giving away what you're doing today, because what you're doing next week is going to be so much different because you will have built on it. So I don't think it's a thing that most people do, but I know certainly maybe like 1 or 2 teams you might have flagged like that to not try that much against or to play stupid.
So let's have a look at Group B now. Again, 4 teams, only 2 can sort of make it into playoffs here. So Xerxia is what it was X10 crit, right?
Yep.
Yes.
So that roster, different name, but obviously still the same bunch of crazy guys on that team. Versus
all the
OpTic.
same. Only the names have changed. Is they're wanted, they're alive.
Only the names change every day. All right, and here in B2, of course, we've got Crew and Team Liquid. This is an interesting one, right? With Liquid, you know, were Fnatic in full form, Liquid would be the weakest group from EMEA being sent here. I think that's not really too out of the question. Going up against Crew, it's a big ask, especially now that at least Liquid know how nasty Crew are, because we've got a good idea of how this team plays. Like, how confident are you, Mitch, that Liquid can survive that first match?
I think Crew will beat them in the first match, honestly, if they play like they did last time. And even just saying that, I was sort of afraid that somewhere in this room, like a portal would open up and myself from 8 months ago would just come through and knock me out. But no, it's good. It's all safe. Yeah, I think Crew might win that game to open up. If I had to pick a favorite, that's who I'd be going with. I think Liquid have a couple of uncertainties coming in. I don't necessarily know what to expect from them. And within EMEA, I wasn't impressed. If Crew come in at 80% of what they brought to champs, 70% of what they brought to champs, they'll win that game.
Okay. These 2 teams have played twice before. In both occasions, they lost to Team Liquid, right? So the record firmly favors Team Liquid. But if you recall, that loss from Crew to Liquid was in the opening match of Champions, where we still didn't know what to think of them, right? They went down lower bracket, they beat Furia, and then they beat Sentinels. So Liquid knocked them down, maybe stoked the fire in that team that allowed them to make just an unbelievable run. But look, I think that's conservative and safe to say that, Liquid probably lose that game. Are you on the same boat, fans? We're not gonna let ourselves be blindsided by Crew this time, I feel.
I don't think so. Well, here's the thing though. I'm not gonna let myself get blindsided by Crew versus Team Liquid. But I kind of have Xerxia beating Crew Esports in the lower brackets after Crew loses to OpTic. So
wow. That's a big one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Yep. That's. I figure X10 Crew were fucking pretty insane at Champions. So.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. That's fine.
They haven't got Patty though, right?
They haven't got Patty, but their new fucking player that's replacing Patty is pretty damn sick. I think his name is Surf, and he's pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. I think he's another like young cracked fucking aimer, like 16, 17 or something like that. But he was shooting fucking lights out for this team. What's really good from Xerxia as well? And sorry, I guess we're gonna should we start with Group B? I don't fucking know.
No, you can talk about these guys. It's fine, because all we're gonna do is talk about Fnatic, and then do our preds. So
okay.
This group.
Okay, perfect. So then just to tackle onto this really quickly, what I do like from Xerxia is that they actually have a pretty deep playbook in terms of set strats, trap plays. It looks really good. I think the competition in SEA continues to grow and has continued to grow since like even Masters 2. Even when we didn't have a chance to see Brent Esports probably could have made an impact at Iceland, and unfortunately we don't see them now. But I think that SEA definitely elevated their game in their region, and I definitely think that they have what it takes to beat Crew.
Here's the roster. Surf there. This team. Look, the guy's name is long. That's intimidating to me. That's a fucking impressive name. Crew's very impressive. How do you fit your name on government forms is my question. You know what I
mean? They have legal papers literally for it's printed on legal paper.
Yeah. I just
get that joke?
I don't know about you guys, but that's imposing to me. Incredibly long names. Love to see
that's incredible. Like I'm trying to even look at like Crows. No, Surf, I guess more in particular. How the hell do you say that?
Yeah.
Runga Pajarak. cool.
All right, don't even fucking try.
I was pretty close, to
let's
be
not
honest with
piss
you.
him off.
I was pretty close.
So talking about impossible things, let's talk about Fnatic's road ahead now, because this is a team that's had to suffer some changes. There are, well, two different issues here. So first of all, we know that Brave can't play.
Brave.
Yeah, I mean Brave also did an oopsie on social media. We covered that
he
already.
did.
And then Durka also tested positive for COVID. So Theroth and Hyber are coming into the roster now. I know, Mitch, you're really familiar with Theroth as a player, right? So let's talk about these guys. Both of them. Give me the lowdown on Theroth and Hyber, all right?
Enzo, très magnifique. J'adore Enzo. Honestly, I think Enzo is one of the best pickups in the world. Probably the best Irish player that's ever existed. So, huge to have him up there in the international stage. Obviously, he will kill me if I actually refer to him as Irish.
I was going to say, is he fucking Irish?
See, this is the thing. He was born in France, and he did live in France for his whole life. But now see, here's the twist. He did come to Ireland to play a LAN. That's where I first saw him. So technically, I first saw him in Ireland, which makes him Irish. And I don't know. I mean, Twitter's obviously bugged. He might have been hacked or something. I'm not too sure about that. But basically, in Ireland, we have a tough time with finding any players. And those that we did have, we had some okay ones in CS, and then they match fixed. So, we're kind of desperate at this point. So he played in, I think, 3 Irish lands. So I'm going to say that's enough. Hey, we give passports out to anybody.
By the way. Yeah, I'm pretty sure when I did an Insomnia Land and I hung out with a bunch of the Irish League of Legends fans, and I was also dubbed as Irish at the time there, so I can confirm that this is the thing that they do.
This is what we do. We do. So Enzo's Irish. He's one of us.
The induction process though involves like a copious amount of alcohol consumed though. It is a requirement. Some people send their initiates up to Mount Wanahakalugi. The Irish just fucking ply them with unreal.
Famous Irish word, yes. Wanahakalugi. Yes, that's my native tongue. What can I say?
All right, so he's fucking French, first of all. But obviously, we had Enzo on the show. Really well-spoken guy, very good-looking, also quite attractive.
He's sexy. You can say.
Yeah, he's hot. But yeah, again, obviously, it was good to sort of hear a little bit from him what's going on at Alliance now, and he's going over to play with Fnatic. He and Hyber, who I think you said earlier on the show is like, just a really cracked player. He's really on the list, top of the list for a lot of teams to sort of court and to find a place for him. So, can you speculate as to what this will necessitate from Fnatic? Like, will there be role reassignments, composition changes? The map pool's just out the fucking window at this point, right? Like, where do you start when you have to do this?
Well, Enzo's going to play Sova. I assume he's literally replacing Brave in that sense, and Hyber will literally replace Durka 1-to-1. Like, they've got as far as the players that they've picked up, they have what I think is the best possible solution that I could think of off the top of my head that will allow them to get back on track as quickly as possible. This is a team that has to go back through the entire map pool. And, a year ago, that might not have been such a big deal with 3 or 4 maps in there, but now it's a pretty big deal. And we're seeing these teams coming across. I was looking at the SEA teams. I was looking at the teams from Brazil, from LATAM. These guys, they play most of the maps. The most thing I've seen is like one team doesn't play a split or someone doesn't play a fracture, but it's a 6-map pool. Like these guys are coming in. So if you have a weakness like that, they're going to fucking crush you on it. So these guys need to grind like crazy. They probably have 1 day per map at this point, which means you start the day off, right? Let's imagine what a Fnatic day is like. They've had 2 days with no prac, and Durka's got COVID. So whenever they were first able to prac as a 5, the situation was they get up in the morning, they go, now maybe they're doing, a bunch of different maps, but just for example, if they were to do Haven 1 day and Bind the next day and so on, you don't have time to fix your Haven. You play it 1 day, you make the slight adjustments between the scrims, and then you draw your conclusions afterwards and adjust for your next game. Your next game's probably going to be the official because you don't have time to go back and do it again. Otherwise, you're going to miss Bind or you're going to miss something else. So it's
Yep.
tough, man. These guys are under so much stress. And when you look at, I think honestly, having Enzo, who's been IGLing since we made Alliances over a year ago now, so this dude's got a lot of experience in that with a bunch of different people, some a little more difficult to work with than others. He's been through the ringer and that shit. So I think he's going to be really valuable to have in the team now, because they will need to do so much on the fly. Regardless of how well they prep or anything, this is going to have to be an off the cuff, just moving with what you can in the moment. And I think that Enzo will be fantastic for that. Hyber, look, he hasn't got the hardest role to replace when you look at Durka, in the sense that obviously he needs to be insanely skilled, but it's something that he does already. He's not going to come in and go, how do I peak long? No, the dude knows how to play Durka's role. So all in all, it's not the worst that it could have been. But with that said, it's just such a limited prep time. It feels like it's going to be they're going to look like a mix. Like 99% they'll look like a mix coming in. And the strength of Fnatic has never been playing like a mix. That was G2 back in the day. The scrappy teams that you have. Fnatic were always praised for being coordinated, for having everything meticulously planned out. And now they don't have the ability to do that, through no fault of their own. So it fucking sucks to be them. But if they make it work, it's never going to be forgotten.
Yep, absolutely. Let's do it then. Time for fucking Preds, baby. You ready for this? Here's Group A, right? Okay. We're talking about who is going to advance out of these groups. We'll have a graphic for it. So Fnatic and IP, DRX, Zeta Division. What, Van Silly, are the two teams that are going to advance in that group?
Group A, it is going to be DRX and Fnatic.
Okay.
I don't think Fnatic's going to have an issue with all these roster changes and whatnot. I still believe in a system that Booster could put in. I mean, they're not playing with incompetent subs. They might lose a bit of firepower to not have somebody that's able to replace Durka 1-for-1 as a top 21 player in the world, but I still think they have good enough firepower with the strats from Bolster to make this work.
Okay,
That's
Mitch.
Yeah,
I'm gonna let you go on this one because I wanna quickly check something while you're giving your prediction. Just give me 2 seconds.
Okay, so I'll be honest. I think that Fnatic have the caliber to get out of this group as well, despite the situation that they're suffering. I'll go for a bit of a wild one here, though, and say that.
Don't tell me NIP.
Hey?
Don't tell me you got NIP making that a group.
I'm not sure. Look, I think it's probably pretty cut and dry, actually. Looking at how DRX compete, I don't think NIP are really going to hold a candle to DRX. Now, I'll go DRX Fnatic as well. It is boring, but I think that Zeta Division are a real unknown, but the consensus is for most teams that they're looking a little bit weaker. So I would say if it wasn't going to be DRX, it would be Zeta Division, just as a wild pick, but I'm not taking that. So DRX Fnatic for me too.
So I was checking out what the situation was with the schedule, and for Fnatic, their first game is going to be on April 11th, so that's the second day of the tournament. Yeah. They're going to move from there. They have to play the next day in the winners bracket if they win. If they lose, they still have to play the next day anyways. And if they win that, they have to play. If they win the upper bracket, they're through. If they go to lower bracket, again, it's the next day. So 3 days in a row, those will be played out. And what that means to me is that, the narrative that I was hoping I'd be able to spin, which was that they would have a day or two in between some of the games and they would have that extra time. Sure, that holds when they make playoffs, which is good. It's absolutely solid. If they make it to playoffs, they gain so much more time to work with. There's even like a 3 or 4 day gap between the actual days happening. But, I wanted to see that gap just so I could say they're gonna top the group. And if they played on the 10th, so if they were playing where DRX and Zeta are, I would maybe make that argument. But without having an official under their belt and then a day to work on it, I feel like that turnaround time puts a lot of stress on them.
A bit much.
So I'm gonna say DRX top the group, but Fnatic make it through down the bottom for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. The tougher one to call is, can Zeta Division actually win a BO3 against NIP?
Yeah. I don't know. But that has nothing to do with our fucking Preds. Because I
don't know. I want to believe in Zeta Division too, but yeah.
Yeah. I think that I kind of agree with you guys. Yeah, I've got Fnatic listed first here, but it's probably the other way around. That DRX probably going to be able to punish them a little bit for having to be a bit of a mixed style. It's gonna
For
basically
Seth's mental health, I hope so. Jesus.
It's gonna test Boaster, I think. Yeah, I mean, if they lose to that Fnatic team, then yeah, obviously, I mean, yeah, the best thing you could do. Seth did it very well. Like his eye twitched for like half a second. He took a big old drink and then he got on with it. You know what I mean?
We'll just have to check in on Seth. We'll just have to check in on Seth.
All right. Alrighty, fucks. Let's have a look at our Group B. This is less cut and dry, I think. I think that's a safe thing to say. OpTic Gaming, Xerxia, Crew Esports, and Team Liquid. Now, the matchups here are important because we might have a world where it's like OpTic v Crew or Xerxia v Crew, maybe, depending on how crazy you are. And the order of this, you know, we have some really nasty lower bracket matchups, right? There's a world where like...
Dude, we have nasty upper bracket matches because those two head-to-heads are all potential revenge matches. One for Crew Esports versus Liquid, and the other one for OpTic versus Xerxia when it was Envy versus X10. So, I don't know if you guys remember Champions when FNS tweeted out whatever happened, and it's like, looks like we're going to be playing X team to try to qualify, and it was like, oh shit, my bad, I totally forgot about X10. We had to beat those guys first, and then they fucking lost to X10. I don't think there comes another world where you have FNS and Jet that's going to be underestimating any of these teams at Masters now, and they will put that practice in to be able to actually get the revenge match against Xerxia.
This is obviously Chet from OpTic sort of talking about sort of how they're expected to be looking and how he sort of felt after Champions. So this is a ways back now. So a more structured approach. So we'll see now. Chet basically saying his imprint is going to be much more noticeable on this team, or at least that's what he wanted after Champions. So, all right, Van Silly, you have the misfortune of being at the top here, so you have to go first, motherfucker.
Hey, no issues. So we had OpTic at the top, right? So they're going to be able to get that revenge win against Xerxia. Then they'll play against Crew Esports because Crew is going to beat Liquid, and then OpTic's going to be at the top. Lower bracket is where I said it's going to get a little bit spicy, but I do definitely believe that Xerxia will be able to beat Crew overall. Like, right. I know I talked a lot about Surf, and I feel that some people disagree with me in chat that Surf is a great replacement to Patty Pan. I think that he is. I think he fits the shoe perfectly, and you're also not only counting on Surf to like X10 was counting on Patty Pan to be able to frag
does
out,
Xerxia
right?
beat Liquid in the lower bracket if they defy them?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So, all right. So you are OpTic and Xerxia, basically.
Yeah. Scary's amazing, man. Don't fucking sleep on Scary. Don't sleep
I
on
know.
Sushi
No,
Boys.
I fucking know. I fucking know. I think it will look differently. I think that Xerxia will have to play Crew in the lower bracket because I think that Liquid are again going to have their number. And then Liquid will lose to OpTic. And then I think that Liquid can beat the winner of Xerxia and Crew. So I think it's OpTic first and then Liquid second. I think Liquid can do it. I think it's fucking LAN. You got Scream on that team. You got a team that's gonna want to look to really come alive here. So I think it's not too fucking crazy saying that. OpTic, Liquid.
I'm the one that's crazy. I have Liquid losing all their games in their group. You know? So
yeah, that's
a hot take.
Not so. I can't give you shit for that. All right, Mitch, what do you got?
Man, it's so tough. You know, do I betray my region and go against Liquid? I feel like I do. You know, I really like the OpTic guard game. I really like the guard, mainly because for the last year, y'all fuckers wouldn't stop talking about them. I hadn't even seen. I didn't know who the fuck played for them. All I knew was the guard. I was like, all right, these guys are legit. And you know, you look at that game versus OpTic, and OpTic certainly legitimized themselves in my eyes there. I mean, maybe OpTic topped the group. I can't believe the words that are coming out of my mouth, but I think Crew might take it as well. They might take that second spot. I'm looking at this and I'm crying inside, but yeah, I'm gonna say OpTic Crew. Fuck. I hope Scream doesn't like slap me.
I mean,
I don't mind if he does.
LBJ in chat thinks that OpTic won't make it out of the groups. Someone must have caved his head in.
Now OpTic look really clean. You know, as much as I love this shit on NA. Oh God, I'm gonna say it. This might be the event they win. I mean, realistically, it's because EMEA has their best team not here, their second best team with half the fucking team there. You know, we're in a bit of a messy spot, let's say. G2 are our only hope, which is
G2's
not
the
a
best
good place to be in. It's not a good place at all.
I wonder. Yeah, I really wonder. This. Okay, so One thing is for sure, though, all of us have picked OpTic to get out of groups in first place.
Yeah.
How confident are we? Not in the fact that OpTic will get out, but that they'll get out first. Is that something you would double down on at this stage?
No, not for me.
Yeah,
not for me. I think there's way too much potential in this group. You know, and it's not like when we came to champs, there's a group of death. There's only 2 fucking groups, but this is stacked. I mean, like Liquid Crew with Liquid being so shaky, that's a match that you really just can't predict because it depends what they come to the table with. We know Crew are going to be good. And that's why I have to pick them, because I know they're going to be good. I don't know that Liquid are going to be good. And OpTic, well, they've proven themselves in NA, which to me is it at least legitimizes them a little bit. So yeah,
there it is. What about the narrative, Mitch? Come on. Look, can't let a little bit of academia get in the way of a good fucking narrative, mate. Unreal.
This fucking integrity and all this shit, what is that?
All right. I can't believe out of all you cunts, I am the only one that reckons Liquid's going to get out. That's actually fucking mental. That's wild. Oh, look, fair enough, though. I mean, I know there's a good reason for people's faith in Liquid to have been shaken, right? But now they finally have something to fucking play for. Finally! Let's see what they got. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. Our predictions for Masters Group A and Group B. Screenshot them, commit them to memory, tattoo them on the inside of your eyelids so you can look at them and come back and fucking roast us for the ones we got wrong a little bit later on. All right, then, bitches. Who wins the whole fucking thing? Who wins the entirety of this tournament?
Oh, damn, we're going that deep already.
Oh, Vans, we are more than knee deep, and you know exactly what I mean.
Oh, man. Fuck.
We're up to the fucking elbow, homie.
All right, well, I'm going to have to go with OpTic.
To win the whole thing? OpTic?
Yep.
Why?
Have you smoked crack recently?
and a copium. If it's not OpTic, it's the guard.
Whoa. I mean, that would be the safer bet, though, right? The guard. They've also got a week of extra prep time. They've got to hide their strats coming into the event, look at their opponents beforehand.
I mean, we can't sleep anymore on the guard, but we also have to stop sleeping on OpTic.
I don't think that's sleeping on OpTic. I think, like, if you look at these two teams that were already so close, and now one team has to, like, grind their way through, play a bunch of matches, and, like, give away how they want to play this meta and right now in Valorant. And then the other team gets to do whatever the fuck they want for a week, go to the ice cream shop, watch the match from there, do all this practice, all this preparation.
That's the thing, man. They're coming in cold at the big stage for the guard.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't rate that, to be honest, man. I think anti-stratting is far more important because you've got a team that's been prepping to play you for a week. These guys have prepped for every team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You definitely do have MC.
You don't have anything to look at on them. So I honestly, that if you ask me, go up against a team and you either want no VODs of them or you'll have no VODs, but they'll be cold coming into the game, or you have VODs and they're warmed up. I would much rather they're like we go in cold.
All right then, Mitch. Who do you reckon is going to win the whole fucking thing then, mate? The whole thing.
Pull the teams back up for a second. Let me really fucking think about this because I don't want to mess up my honor on this one. I mean,
while Mitch is thinking, let me tell you and take a little bit of a rewind for the head-to-head for the guard and OpTic for the upper finals or for the grand finals as well for NA. Is that OpTic had no idea that this matchup was going to be that important. Where the third map, they actually have Marv playing like fucking Sky, and like Victor playing Chamber and shit.
That is true.
So, and then once it started to get serious, they still played very well on split against the guard when the guard thought that they had OpTic's number on that map, and Haven came down to the wire on the 13-11. I think on any other scenario, I think OpTic still looks pretty good.
I'll tell you what, I'm looking forward to having a beer with MCE. Matthew was good to chat with. Had a lot of good insights. Guard have been playing great. Jesus fucking Christ! I think the Guard are going to win it. I'm gonna toss my hat in there.
Hell yeah!
Jesus Christ!
This is just the heel turn of the century. He's fucking doubting his cider. That's how fucking serious he is. It's a $14 cider, Vans. That's how fucking serious this guy is.
God, what have I done?
Just saying that like that.
What have I done? I'm gonna get so much shit for this if they don't do well.
I mean, you already get the shit from
you better fucking play
the amount of question marks he's got in chat.
Oh, listen, Sue. These things happen. These things happen. Look at the state of our region, man. If FPX are here, hell, I'll fucking tattoo. If they were here, I would have tattooed FPX on my chest if they lost. They would have taken it. They played so damn good. But we lose FPX. We lose half of Fnatic. It's like I'm not even rooting for my region's barely even here. It's like, so yeah, I don't know. I think the Guard they've been on the grind for a long time, man. They deserve it. I'll say that. If fuck it, if any NA team is to win, I want it to be the Guard because I don't want it to be fucking Sentinels or anything.
Yeah.
The Guard deserve it. Give it to them.
Thankfully, those motherfuckers aren't even turning up to the tournament, Mitch, so you're safe there. Okay. I get what you're saying about FPX winning, but I think that split game between FPX and G2 was one of the most fucking epic split games I've seen. It kind of had everything. You know, I think Mixwell is looking really good on the chamber, especially when he has to play that. I actually think the G2 are going to win. I actually think the G2 can do it. I think that there were some dodgy fucking maps in that FPX game, but I would say like the split map. Yeah, I think G2. I don't think that's so fucking crazy. Is it really?
It's not crazy. I just have you going for EU while we have EU going for NA. I was like, what the fuck is going on?
This doesn't look right. Yeah, the Mitches are swapped. The Mitches are swapped. Just
exactly.
flip it back around.
We got the right Mitches.
Yeah, I mean, the Guard. I think the Guard's a pretty good pick, to be honest with you. I think they're more likely than OpTic. I think Yeah, I don't know, man.
I can't pick G2, man. I can't. I think there's too much.
All these teams stop fucking around, and so many of these teams don't play Raze when they should be playing Raze, right? G2 have fucking Nuke, right? They have they have a really nice Raze chamber setup. I think Meadow is fucking. If they have to play breach comps, and I think they're really well positioned for that as well. I don't know. I like G2. I think they're in a good spot.
This still owns.
They can fucking play the comps that need to be played. Where like there are so many teams that get so stuck on playing the Jet quite often, and teams that still trying to figure out like how if they move away from the Astra and how they get involved with the Brimstone. So yeah, I want G2. I think G2 are going to win. I'm doing it. Yeah, it's me. Uber shouts. I think that they're going to fucking win. Yeah, I don't think. Look, it's not reasonable. It's just not reasonable to expect Fnatic to go that far. Like, you're just asking too much. As brilliant as that team is, and as brilliant as Boaster is in leading that team, you are asking for way too much. Team Liquid, fucking guys, Christ. As a layperson, I thought that team had like 2 weeks in them, max, after those playoffs, after those qualifiers. Like, I just didn't see it. They might be artificially being held together by the fact that they're actually competing at this tournament. It's kind of a weird feel. Maybe it's like a swan song, and who knows? Maybe if they win, like they never break up and they stay together forever, and we're all so fucking happy. But that team doesn't have a fucking IGL. They don't have an IGL, guys.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know about Paper X. I'll be honest, that could just be inexperience. I'm not watching enough of their VODs. I think like there are people that think that team can really have an impact, but I don't really see it. So there it is. Screenshot that, motherfuckers. That's some spice on this show. I cannot believe Mitch has turned coat. Vans, now here's what you do. In the future, when Mitch tries to gang up on you, with Yinsu or just on his own, you have to fucking remember this. And you need to remember exactly why you chose this. Don't fucking let me down here because you're letting people steamroll you just because you got to keep the receipts, motherfucker. All right? This is how you become a real...
Production's keeping it for me.
Yeah. All right. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. So, that's our predictions. That's all we've got time for today because somehow we managed to take a show that was full of a lot of hot air, mostly produced by yours truly. We've made it about 2.5 hours. So that's the fucking standard stuff. It's like, it's fuck off o'clock for Vans, getting late for Mitch. We're going to end it there. But big shout out, thanks to Seth and thanks to Dryad for coming onto the show. Had a great chance to preview and showcase some of the other regions heading into Masters. It's not far away at all now, of course, and everyone's getting ready. So hopefully you're all excited for some fantastic Valorant action. Marred a little bit, unfortunately, by some notable absences of players and teams, but still promises to be a great event. I think Riot have done a fantastic job marketing it. They did a great job with Masters last year. I expect more of the same. So next week we'll be back. We'll talk some more shit. Okay. Well, we're getting close to our close to like our 1 year anniversary, I think.
Yeah.
So don't go too far.
100th episode, probably.
100th episode, not 1 year, because we're doing this for fucking longer than that. I've only been doing this for 1 year. There was Valoranting before me. Not very interesting though, but it existed. 100 episodes. We're getting close, so we'll be celebrating that one, ladies and gentlemen, in a big way. That's all I'll say for the time being. We'll catch you guys next week, 11 a.m. PT. Stay pretty.